This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. We will be dissecting their journeys in hopes to deliver actionable content that you, the artist, can start implementing now, helping you grow not only as a creative spirit, but also a successful artistic entrepreneur. With a little organization, relationship building, and your artistic ability, you can obtain greatness. Climb aboard, whether an artist, retail owner, or enthusiast. We have a ton of fun in store for you. Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
You're listening to the Wise Guy Radio Show.
This episode, what's going on? Welcome to the Wise Guy Radio Show, episode number 176. This is your host, Jason Michael, and thanks so much for tuning in today. Today's episode is featuring Austin Hensley. He has been a glass artist since the age of 9 and has been on the torch now for 20 years. And it's a pretty incredible story on how he got started doing glass and where he got started and what he's doing now about and everything. And it's really a really fun conversation we had. We covered everything and anything you could possibly think of, especially starting off as a young kid doing glass to where he is now, almost 30 years old now. And the fun journey he had and the experiences and growing up with parents who were entrepreneurs and also artists, and just an overall great experience. I definitely think you will enjoy his story for sure. It's definitely inspiring. And myself personally, had a little bit of a hiatus. Went out of town last week on a little vacation. Was supposed to go to Glass Roots, and for those listening to the last episode before this one, I had mentioned I wasn't going to be able to make Glass Roots this year due to Hurricane Irma came through and blew my budget out of the water, literally. So a little bit of extras that we had left over for our trip. My daughter and I went on a fun little road trip and went to a wedding and then traveled into the Carolinas and saw some leaves changing and some waterfalls and had a good dad-daughter time hanging out together. It was a lot of fun. And thanks for those that have been still tuning into the show and downloading episodes and staying in touch with me and everything. I definitely appreciate it. And things are back on track. I've got everything moved now 100%. My studio has moved. It's almost finished getting built, so I can't wait to get back on track with that and start getting all these videos and all this stuff I've been wanting to get done now for like the last year. 2017, I started off fucking amazing, and then it got real crazy, and now it's back to being amazing again. And you know, as we go through life and all these trials and tribulations that we have, we never really know where it's going to take us. And all I can say is be patient, because all the shit that you're going through, if it's positive or negative or a little bit of both mixtures, it's all there for a reason, whether it's something that you caused yourself or the cosmos or whatever's got planned out there for you. But I promise, in the end, it's all worth it, 100%. And now that I'm in a position where I'm at, and I understand that everything I've gone through over the last 20 years of my life has all culminated and led up to where I am right now in my life, which is in a place where I'm the happiest I've ever been. I mean, I can honestly say that right now at almost 41 years old, I am the happiest I've ever been. It's pretty fucking crazy, in mental space and physically, all that stuff. You will hear I mentioned in the episode, I have been taking this medicine called Effexor for like the last 6 months. It's like an antidepressant, anti-anxiety stuff. And initially when I started taking the medication, honestly, I haven't had any kind of anxiety since taking this stuff. And my doctor gave it to me as I was, at the time, taking Adderall and was getting off the Adderall, and she was trying to see if I can do something else to get me through my divorce and what I was going through. And I'm now off this stuff, but it's been 3 days since I've stopped taking it, and I feel like a complete ass. It's the fucking craziest. I can't even explain to you except for this term that I've been reading about called this brain buzz that you get, where literally I feel like an electrical impulse goes from my foot to my hand every time I take a step. It's the weirdest thing. And I called them today just to follow up on it to make sure I'm not dying, and they said, yeah, so it's a side effect. And then I was cussing them out on the phone because I would have been nice to know what kind of effects I was going to have coming off this medication. So it's also part of where I've been here mentally the last couple of days, just not feeling too good, weird space, but still staying motivated and functioning like I should. So that being said, the only reason I brought that up was because this episode, early on in the interview with Austin, I was a little brain dead, and then my brain started firing again, and I got back on track. So you'll hear me say something about that, but I thought I'd bring it up anyways, because I share everything with you, and that's just how this show works. I'm transparent, so hey, there you go. But yeah, so that being said, don't forget right now, for the whole month of October, Mountain Glass has their glass sales going on right now for all you borosilicate lamp workers out there and people that like to use this medium. Mountain Glass has their 30% off North Star Glassworks sale, and all you have to do is put in the code North Star, North star at checkout. And for all you beautiful soft glass nerds out there, right now they're having their Effetre sale at 35% off, and all you have to do is put in the coupon code Effetre at checkout, EFFETRE at checkout, and to receive 35% off. And they have a shit ton of new items, colors coming out. I know a lot of you don't like the Chinese colors, but there is a whole new opaque line of Chinese colors that have come out that I think personally I'm going to try myself because they look beautiful. And all these other boutique companies have all these new boutique, whatever I call them, but all these colors coming out. It's just, right now is just an amazing time to be a glass blower. We've got so much stuff, almost too much, if you know what I mean. But yeah, so check out Mountain Glass. Go to mountainglass.com. And if you're a newbie and you just got started doing glass and you're looking at getting yourself a little kit, don't forget you can use the coupon code WISEGUY at checkout and receive 10% off a kit on there as well, starter kit. And if you see a starter kit that you like and there's certain things in there that you don't need, you can let them know and they'll take it out. Or if there's things that you don't see in the kit, they'll add them in there for you. It's pretty good stuff. And Mountain Glass is now celebrating their 15 years of being around. They have a Halloween party kind of coming up here in the end of the month to celebrate the 15th anniversary. And it's going to be just pretty fucking amazing. We've got champs coming here to Orlando next week. And I'm gonna be heading there for a day or two in between going to work and stuff. I've got my buddy Chris Dickey's gonna be in town. He won the giveaway table and competition spot for the championships or whatever they're doing there at the champs tournament that they have every year. Again, I'm having brain farts and not firing completely, so I'm having trouble recalling what the hell it is. But you know what I'm talking about. They have their competitions there, and he'll be staying with me for a couple of days and. Going to get him and his wife over to the show. I'm pretty excited about everything for him too. And all kind of good stuff. Glass Roots just ended. I'm going to be bringing on Chris Piazza again to follow up with him. He goes by Crispy Glass. And last year we did a follow-up with him on Glass Roots and how that went for him. And we're going to do another follow-up this year to see how things went. And I was talking to Austin, too, after the show. We're going to bring him back on after he does Glass Vegas. It's going to be his first time doing Glass Vegas this year. And we're going to talk about that and see how he did there, too. And these trade shows are always hit and miss. You know, it's not always a definite thing for everybody that goes there. So be curious to see how Chris did over in Glass Roots. So, and I'm also kind of going to bring Nick back on, too, as a follow-up on how the classes went and how things were organized this year with people selling their glass and also taking classes and doing the seminars and plans for their future and their growth of the trade show there as well. So we got a lot of good things coming on. We got a bunch of guests lined up for shows, all kind of good shit. So definitely stay tuned for more episodes and fun stuff. I'm going to be doing some solo shows coming up here talking about some business stuff. Holidays are right around the corner again, so I'll be doing my annual holiday show talking about items you can make, things to think about, thinking outside the box, ways to sell your glass, promote it, ways you can set up an Amazon marketplace nowadays. Like there's all kind of things we're going to be getting into here the next couple months talking about stuff. And if you are, getting in gear for the holidays, it's October, dudes and dudettes. It is time to get your ass in gear for the holidays because shops are going to be starting to order glass. And if you're not going to the trade shows are what you're competing with when it comes to getting your stock and your inventory into these shops. So it's time to get your shit together and start getting your orders out there and talking to your shops and your owners and figuring out what the hell it is you're going to make this year. So get it going. And on that note, I'm going to get my ass in the shower and get ready for work. It's late here in Florida, and I got a long day. Actually, got a long couple days in the hot shop here. I'll be sweating. But, this week it's in the 80s. It's actually, I think tomorrow's high is 81, which is amazing. I can't wait. I was just up in the Kentucky area, and it was like in the 60s, which is fucking amazing too. But I'm looking forward to, and here in Florida, low humidity and weather in the 80s. It's going to be amazing. So that being said, I'm going to stop rambling here. So don't forget, if you guys had not yet left a review on iTunes, it's now easier than ever. If you have an iPhone, just open up your iPhone app for the podcasts. Open up the show here, and you'll see right there on the little page for the podcast, you can automatically leave a little review. Hit the 5-star button if you feel the show deserves 5 stars. leave a little write-up, leave a review, tell me what you think about the show, things you think I could do differently or better, or things that you like about the show as well. iTunes likes to see all that stuff as it gets the show exposed to all those people out there that are looking for podcasts. And we want to expose our community as much as possible to keep all these dollar signs and things rolling around and your glass getting out there and people really getting an idea of what the hell this community is all about, because this community is fucking amazing, and I'm happy to be doing the show on a weekly basis and talking glass and sharing stories with y'all. So it would help out tremendously if you did that. And if you have a Droid, you can still go to iTunes and leave us a review, or you can also download any kind of other podcast catcher app, Stitcher, what have you, and leave reviews on there as well for the show. It's all hugely appreciated and much well loved you for doing that for me, so thank you. And that being said, if you need to leave me emails, messages, hit me up at wiseguymedia@gmail.com. It's wiseguymedia, WYZGUI, media@gmail.com. I mentioned here in the show also about leaving some links on for Amazon for Bandhu's 3-book series on his essential lampworking books that he put out. They are available through Amazon. There is a link here in the show notes. You can click on the link. And by using this Amazon link, you're actually also helping out the show. It's our Amazon portal for the Wise Guy Radio Show. And if you want to help out at all, we have a Patreon page. We have all kind of good stuff coming on. And I'm not really out there pushing for you to give me money, because that's not what I do. But it is getting to a point where I'm going to need to start upgrading stuff and getting better equipment and what have yous, and to get to myself to be able to afford to travel and not have to pull money out of my own pocket, my own budgets to do the trade shows and traveling and stuff. And I'm not talking about like trade shows to sell, but trade shows to cover for you to understand the best ways for you to go to these trade shows and sell. So stay tuned for some more updates on our Patreon page. We have some fun things we're going to be doing for you for those that do $5 or more a month donations, and or tips, or as a patron for our Patreons. And those that are going to be patrons are going to be considered to be my wise asses. And it's just a fun little way we can keep on using the whole wise term here. So, all right, I'm rambling. I'm out of here. Love you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to episode 176 featuring Austin Hensley. And we will talk to you soon. Y'all take care. Peace. Hey, Austin, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, man. So it's been a fun adventure here for the last 2 weeks trying to get you on the show, and seems like I've always got some fucking something in life that gets in my way. I'm finally feeling like I'm settled in, and I can now take a deep breath, and here we are recording this. So appreciate your patience, brother. It's been a crazy last couple months with hurricanes and moving and divorces and all kind of fucking crazy shit. I'm glad I had a vacation last week because it was way overdue.
Oh yeah. As soon as I saw the hurricane, I was more worried for your safety than for recording than anything.
Yeah, man, I appreciate
that. And then when
that.
your little hurricane edition popped up, I was actually kind of relieved because I forgot to check in with you in the meantime, and I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, nice. Hell yeah.
You're
Well, thanks. Yeah. It was definitely an adventure for sure. But yeah,
it sounded
man.
like it.
Oh, dude, it was insane. But yeah, people are still recovering here too. It's crazy seeing all these tree branches, and I mean, I can't complain because Puerto Rico is completely fucked, and there's all these little islands that nobody talks about that are just like devastated. So it's like whatever we had was just a wrinkle in time. Everybody else is dealing with shit for a long. Man, it's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, we've all, no matter what, on the mainland, you got a pretty good support network, and even if it might take a while to get there, they've got a whole other basket of issues there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, you're out west too. I mean, I know we're getting a little sidetracked here. Are you dealing with any of the fires at all yourself that's out in California? Are they like heading in towards your areas, or are you guys still safe out there?
Not that I know of, but then again, we burn down rather regularly, so we're kind of used to it, and the fuel is not quite what it gets to in California, which is what I understand is a big part of the problem. Is just a lack of regular fires, and then a whole bunch of fuel, and then holy shit, there it goes.
Yeah,
it's never fun.
It's amazing though.
We've had some
people build these houses in the middle of the redwood forest and all these areas that have to have fires to survive. Like these trees need these fires to propagate and everything else. It's like I don't know. I have a ton of sympathy, and I'm very empathetic for it, but I still have to question those that have millions of dollars why they choose to build their houses in a place like that, you know?
Yeah, no, it's easy to get blinded by the beauty,
Yeah.
and things like that. And I can understand that, having been to some properties in Northern California and stuff like that, and just been like, well, holy crap, I can understand why you built this here. But yeah, there's that part of it where you're like, it's kind of like building like right on the beach.
Mm-hmm.
You're just like, oh, this is gorgeous, but those waves are really close.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, yeah, there's just something very disconcerting about that. And that might just become, coming from me in living in the middle of Arizona, in a part of Arizona where nothing ever happens. So, like, that's a big thing. We saw a really big flood, 20 years ago, and that's about the only thing that I've seen in my lifetime.
Huh? No dust storms,
Other
and
than,
none of that kind of crazy shit.
No, because I'm up north. I'm in a little town called Clarkdale. I'm
Okay.
right next to kind of Sedona. It's right in the dead center of the state, and we're kind of locked in between a bunch of little miniature mountains and hills and stuff. And the landscape just doesn't really allow anything really bad to happen. We get really awesome lightning storms and awesome sunsets, but we don't really get a whole lot of bad weather other than the normal Arizona heat, which we get lesser of than places like Phoenix and things like that, which never really cool off. At least we cool off at night.
Yeah, it sounds like you're like in the perfect little like Dorothy zone, like Earth is in the universe kind of thing.
It is. It's really weird.
Huh.
Yeah,
Crazy.
it's super nice. We get little itty bitty miniature earthquakes every once in a while, but it's like I remember being a kid and just kind of getting bumped like a half an inch or an inch to the right and just being like, oh, that was interesting. Everything on the shelf just fell over. But that's about as much as I've ever had experience. My dad said he's got knocked off his feet a couple of times because we're right on the fault line where my parents' house is. And so other than that, I've really never experienced any major kind of craziness that I see everyone else experiencing. So
well, I'm knocking on
I
some
think I
wood
just
for you,
get
dude.
lucky. Yeah. In a good little spot so far.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, I guess to get us back on track here, if you want to get us all fired up here and started by giving us your little superhero origin story and how you were introduced to glass.
Oh, for sure. My mother is a jeweler and did the Renaissance Festival circuit. And so my introduction to glass came at the Arizona Renaissance Festival when I was about 7 years old or 8 years old. I began kind of obsessing over the lamp worker that was there and asking a whole bunch of random questions that a kid asks. And by the time I was about 9 years old, he was done with questions, had found my parents and asked permission for me to learn, and kind of ambushed me with it one day when I showed up and was just like, hey, no more questions. Here, get on the torch. You're going to make a marble.
Cool.
And I made this like wonky little itty bitty marble and had just a hell of a lot of fun. And every weekend when I would go back with my parents down to the fair, because we lived just a few hours away, so it was easy enough to just go down there for the weekends. And he would teach me something different and teach me a little miniature here or teach me how to do a tiny little blown object or this or that. And by the end of the couple of months that the fair was, I was just obsessed, completely enamored. And he sent me home with a little National A1 hand torch and I think just like 2 tips and one of those little tomato flats full of random short bits. And that began my obsession. I went home and my parents were really facilitative to sit there and take a 9 and 10-year-old and be like, all right, here we go. You have a torch in the middle of the house and we're going to set you up a ventilation system and a little safety area and a hood. And they were really cool about it because my dad is in automotive and my mom's a jeweler. So they had almost all the equipment around, like all the technical equipment, like tanks and regulators and everything. And it just seemed to all be serendipitous. And it came together in a way that really told me like, hey, this is kind of what you need to be doing. And like I said, I got really obsessed with it. And there really wasn't a resource for information at that point because it was still, mid to early 90s. So there was a couple of books which I had no idea about at that point. And other than that, like Lampwork, et cetera, online, when I finally got online in the late 90s, was the first time I had like other people other than the one guy from the Renaissance Festival like giving me any sort of idea of what was out there. Before that, I was a kid and I never saw anybody's work really. And then I got introduced to that and started seeing a few of the magazines that were out at the time, like the Flow and stuff, and started seeing like Banjo's early work when he was doing the female forms that were motorcycles and things like that. And that just blew my mind because I was so obsessed with doing solid work. I didn't even realize that things like that were a possibility. The connection really wasn't there for quite a few years as a kid, that all of the objects in glass that I was sitting around all the time when I was at school in the science labs and things like that were all blown glass. And then once that happened, I was just like, oh, holy crap, like, this is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing how much that opened up like a whole idea of glass blowing. I think just not only for pipe makers in this community, but just for glass artists in general, to the concept of sculptural. I mean, you have like Mickelson and some of those cats have been doing some amazing hollow form for years and years and years before even the pipes. But like, I think it really did open the eyes for a lot of artists out there.
Yeah, and I grew up with, the whole young movement, like almost everybody does, where that's the counterculture thing. And the counterculture, of course, with, our generations has for a long time been like skaters and things like that. And right along the side of that was all this really interesting pipe community that came out of all the 60s and the Dead community and everything like that. And everybody, like, I just saw this interesting little, at least around here, that was the only people that were really interested in the things in the head shops that were more artistic and weren't just, $2 proto spoons at the time and things like that. And I was at home just sitting there making kitschy, goofy little sculptures and focusing on like holiday stuff and, just really playing a kid lamp worker up until I was about 14 or 15. And I was introduced to a local pipe maker here, and he showed me how to make a simple spoon and how to push one of the push mushrooms, the little mushroom implosions. Which somehow I had missed all those years. And even though I was doing jellyfish in a kind of similar manner, I wasn't really doing the push. And I was just doing an implosion and then frit roll and then encasing the whole thing and making little jellyfish and things like that. But it was a really interesting, again, like eye-opening experience to realize like how many more people than I thought were doing it, because as a kid, everybody's telling me, oh, this is a dead art. This is really cool for you as a kid to be doing because nobody does this anymore.
Yeah.
And, you're a kid, you believe them. You're like, oh, okay, nobody does this anymore.
Yeah, well, I still
so
hear
run
it,
into
though.
Information. Yeah.
I still hear
it.
And
then it's just crazy, like how much things have opened up in the very short period of time.
Yeah, it's incredible, man.
Since I was a kid.
Like you're saying, like back then, like the information was like few and far between, and those that had the information were really secretive and didn't want to share anything. And there was a couple, forums that were out there, and magazines and publications, but it was still like it was still blurry. Like the information was kind of there, and we kind of understood what was going on, but like you really had to understand what you were doing to really understand what you were reading and absorbing that information. Unless you had somebody like they're showing you physically what was going on.
Right. And a lot of the techniques, there was no kind of reference. You had, it's not like you had a whole bunch of pieces like this made that you had experienced in your life to like sit there and oogle and look at and break down and be like, oh, this is how I think they could have made it. So when you see stuff like that, you're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, exactly. Who are these sorcerers?
Like, how did they get a fucking butterfly in there? You know what I mean? And then you go on and you're talking to somebody and they're like, oh, it's drawn lines. And you're like, oh, okay, you're not helping at all.
But then you totally. But then you see like Paul Stankard's work and it's like, how the fuck does he make a flower with little bumblebees flying over the top of it? And they're,
that shit still boggles my mind.
I know, dude.
Still to this day.
And I know how he does it. Yeah. And I know how he does this like, shit, but I still have no fucking clue. It's like, it's incredible.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was working at a little gallery here pretty close, and they had some of Akihiro's stuff that he had done right after working with Stankard or one of Stankard's contemporaries, I'm not sure. And they were just, they kind of had that same mind-boggling quality that I remember from Stankard's, where you're just looking at it and you're like, all right, how the hell did he make the lemon look like it's kind of rippled, and why is this peach fuzzy? Like, this peach should not be fuzzy. and it's awesome. And
it is,
like, I love it. I just love seeing the ingenuity, and I love seeing like people's technique and process applied in a whole bunch of different ways, because they take things that a lot of us take for granted, or a lot of us look at like flaws.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, okay, well, how can I accentuate that and make the whole piece look like that, and then, use it to my advantage instead? And I find that absolutely amazing. And they use all the information from thousands of years before, which, I think a lot of pipe makers and a lot of more contemporary artists are tending to not necessarily ignore, but they kind of gloss over a lot of times. And, there's a lot of glass information out there. Like,
yeah.
It's just not borosilicate information, but that does not mean it doesn't apply.
Yeah, and I hate to say, I hate to use the word lazy, regarding to some of the glass blowers out there or the artists, whatever, but there is so much information, and I see the same fucking questions asked over and over in all these forums, and it's like, don't ask. I mean, I get asking questions that take shortcuts to get answers from people that know what they're talking about, or who you assume know what they're talking about, but it's like, having Google nowadays and the availability to look up stuff, or even having I don't know, there's so many books out there, and even just all the contemporary lampworking books. I mean, anything you could think of that's out there.
Yeah.
It's just there's real true information.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is, and it's real information. It's not just like some troll or somebody's guessing something or something. You know what I mean? It's right. Interesting.
And it's a lot more clear and easy to understand. And like you were saying earlier, even a lot of the things in the articles and the things earlier, they were very vague, and they made just an enormous amount of assumptions about what you knew about glass. And so, if you didn't know those things about glass, you're looking at a whole new, era of trial and error, trying to figure out this technique that should be relatively straightforward. Mm-hmm. And the information nowadays is pretty much relatively straightforward. It's really nice.
Yeah, it is. And I think the understanding, like you're saying, of teaching something as if the person has no fucking clue what you're talking about. Because when I teach it, I don't care how much experience you have. I'm going to teach you as if you have no idea what you're talking about, or you have you understand, but you don't know. Just to make things clear.
I love when people do that, because they like I said, I've been doing this my entire life, but yet every time I meet a new pipe maker or a new glass artist in general, I always learn something about glass that I didn't know, and I just find that amazing. We all glean our own information. I mean, obviously the basics are the basics, mm-hmm. and glass behaves certain ways, but we all glean little itty bitty bits of technique and information differently. And it's just really, really cool to compile all those little techniques and all the information from different people when you meet them, because it's, people's perspective really shows in a medium like this.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's fun because it's like you're saying, going back to the whole skateboarding concepts, it's like it's given us a chance to kind of get our voice and our style and to have a unique look and position in this glass world as an artist or as a skater, with our own little flair that we have.
Right. And then there's people who are just pushing the technical game on part of it as well, and just blowing people's minds, just like that industry mm-hmm. was as well, where it's oh, that's not possible. And then a few months later, they're like, not only is that possible, but look at this crazy shit we can do. Yeah, it's just what the hell is going on?
Yeah, it's like years ago, Jason Lee does a 900, and all of a sudden you got Buck comes out and does a 1200, or some shit, or another artist comes out and does something else, just one guy stepping it up over the other. But we're all influenced by each other in this kind of transition of, and levels of artists over the years and years and years. It's pretty cool to see it.
Yeah, and it's really awesome to see the way everybody's camaraderie has kind of come together, and everybody is much more supportive. And I mean, there's always going to be trolls, and there's always going to be people who don't want other people to gain a status above them, whatever the hell that is anyway. But it's really interesting because like you were saying earlier, there for a long time people did not teach you their techniques and would not, if you did a honeycomb with a pattern that this guy in town did, they're going to come after you and be like, hey, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. And it's silly, to be honest. And it's really interesting to see how much things are almost the polar opposite in the majority of cases now, where I'll run into somebody and they'll be like, oh yeah, no, this is how I make this. You should try and make one.
Hell yeah.
And that's how I started doing like a lot of the more recent techniques that I do, and started getting into the more like sculpting all the skulls and things that I've been doing lately. Is I kind of went down and was hanging out with some friends of mine down in Phoenix, and they make a lot of skull stuff, and they were showing me how they do it, and I was just like, well, that's freaking awesome. So I started messing around, and I like rabbits, so figured I'd make some undead rabbits, and it kind of went from there.
Hell yeah. Yeah, I dig them, dude. They're fun. They remind me of, and I apologize tonight to everybody listening to this. I am completely fucking brain dead. I'm coming off this medication I've been taking for like the last 9 months, and I've been off of it for the last 3 days, and the fucking withdrawal symptoms from this shit and side effects are ridiculous. So I'm just apologizing now because I'm fucking brain dead. But there's that one movie that came out with the rabbit head. Well, you know what I'm talking about?
I get it every time. It's Donnie Darko.
Donnie Darko, yes, thank you. Yeah.
And it's the funny thing about that is I've never seen that movie.
Of course, and I wanted to ask you that.
Everybody tells me that. Like every single time. I remember making the first one, and I show it to my brother, and he's like, it's Donnie Darko. And I'm like, it's what? And he's like, from high school. And I'm like, you do realize we didn't go to high school at the same time. And he's like, oh shit, it's Donnie Darko. And no, I still haven't seen it. And I don't know, part of me wants to, part of me doesn't. Like,
yeah, but you know, it's a great example, dude, of people that make stuff that have no idea somebody else is doing it, and then they get bitched at for biting on another artist. And it's, I hear it all the fucking time, and it's like, I just wish people would stop bitching. And just, you know,
I like to give people kudos when they like do things that I do, like, and they do them in a better way or give them their own twist.
Yeah, just be encouraging.
It's one thing if somebody copies you verbatim,
right,
you know.
Right.
But you know, that's just kind of rude.
Yeah, completely.
But at the same time, you know, the imitation is the finest form of flattery, I guess.
Yeah, it's a cliche, dude, but it's the fucking truth. I believe it. I completely agree. But you know, man, before we go too far forward, I kind of want to back up a little bit to the Renaissance days with your mom, because myself personally, I was introduced to the flame through the Renaissance Festival. Same thing. There was an artist I saw there, and I didn't take 2 years of doing it, but it took me three hours of to watching this guy make these dragons, and then he offered me an apprenticeship kind of thing, and it was a great scene to be in, like a bunch of crazy fucking people running around, running these places, all these crazy artists, the whole 9 yards. And I'm sure you experienced that out there, especially. But when you started doing the glass, did you get a chance to like work in the Renaissance Festival at that show with him and do glass at all? Or?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I didn't mean to glaze over that. Yeah,
no, it's okay.
No, for a long time I did. So immediately the next year when I went back after he gave me that hand torch, I had started working for my father at our automotive shop. He owns a 1942 Texaco station, like one of the extremely old school ones with the big like awnings and the full service gas pumps, and that was what I did for 15 years. Actually, it was run out, pump people's gas, wash your window, and check your tires, and do all that kind of stuff.
Hell yeah!
Keep the family business going. And I forgot where I was. Oh yeah. So they helped me buy my torch setup, and I got a Nortel Major Minor, which I still have sitting right next to me and had used to this day when I was 10, because they were like, well, if you're working for us, if you can save half the money, we'll go ahead and help you buy the other half of your studio and really just get going on this. And so by the time I had come back after that first year being gone for the Renaissance Festival and him coming back, I already had my own torch.
Cool. And
was like really getting kind of serious of just making pendants and stuff, and still making a lot of the little miniature designs that he had shown me, and doing my own little oddball miniature designs. And he just immediately like didn't even think about it, just put me right on the torch and was just like, all right, here's what you're going to do. You're going to sit here in your goofy little outfit that you already have, and we're just going to make stuff, and kids are going to run up, and they're probably going to be your age or older, and they're going to ask you to make a dragon or something. You can go ahead and make them a dragon. I'm like, okay, sweet. Sounds like a great job.
Dude, that's so cool. Yeah, man. Because like I knew when I ran the festival, like I was like 23 myself and wearing the same goofy outfit. Probably you were similar, something that you were wearing. And my peasant costume, and
oh yeah,
I used to love when the kids would come there, and the school buses and the field trips and shit, and seeing they would all freak out and buy all of our we had these little like teardrop pendants, we called them dragon tears. It was a little silly $5 thing you could buy, but the kid, and that's what I made. I made those little dragon tears all fucking day long, by the hundreds every day, and It's got to be a whole different experience. So being a kid, having kids come up and watching you do that, it's just got to be like
It was.
it's got to be interesting.
Yeah, it's really. I don't. It's hard to explain because I mean, like, it was really boosting in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And part of me wants to say it's like ego boosting, but at that point you don't really. I mean, you do have an ego, but it wasn't really boosting that. It was just like
It's probably more confidence.
It made me so much more excited
Yeah.
and confident about the glass.
Yeah.
And it was really cool because he would be like, okay, you know, we had these little trays out that were right next to me, and they were miniatures. They were just, you know, it was penguins, princesses, dragons. Oh God, there's a bunch of different stuff. Frogs, lizards, and just enormous amount of other things I can't even remember. But it was one of my jobs to keep that stocked anytime somebody bought one, and he sold them for like $3.50 or $5.
Nice.
And people would come up and they would always just, they're like, oh, these are so cute. And they're all little Pegasuses and horses, and you know how horse legs are. And when you're doing them and they're only 1.5 centimeters long, it's like, God damn it.
Yeah. It's a pain in the ass.
And so it really, I don't know. That was ironically the only time I really like got into doing like high speed production. But it was like miniature sculpture stuff, and I have always had an obsession with sculpting. And so it was right up my alley. And then he did a lot of like spun glass lacework kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He would do Cinderella's carriage, and he would do huge dragons that were about, I would say 1 foot to 18 inches tall, and they had multiple heads and stuff. And just really cool, old school, I like his own riff on kind of like the carnival glass technique.
Yeah, yeah. Hell yeah, that's
fun. It was really fun. He sold lots of hummingbirds, stuff like that. But he would do a lot of the larger stuff, and then I would do a lot of the smaller stuff. And he had another little miniature studio set up behind the glass blowing studio that was out there in the public, and we would make stuff back there in the off hours when I was able to stay.
Hell yeah.
But
Do you think like working with your
awesome.
mom? Yeah, oh yeah. And as a kid, not only is this the experience alone to be on stage and doing that kind of shit, but like getting to really get that heavy work ethic. And obviously you working for your parents really taught you the work ethic too. But it seems like you were your own, you know, driven on your own. You didn't need anybody really to motivate you to go out there and bust your ass at 10 years old.
Yeah, no, I can definitely attribute that a lot to my parents for sure. I mean, like I definitely am a driven individual, and I do like working, and I don't really like downtime very much, but I've watched my parents work their asses off my whole life and been extremely inspired by it. And even since, you know, they kind of split ways, they still are really driven individuals in a lot of ways. And they're really inspiring. My father made it through one bout of cancer, acted like nothing was happening for the most part of it. It was ridiculous. You know, I mean, just crazy strong, crazy driven, never stop working, never stop trying kind of people.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I can attribute a lot of that to them for sure.
Yeah, it's important.
You know.
Is your mom still doing jewelry and stuff?
Not as much. She has a job up in Jerome. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jerome, and it's like a little art community, and she makes some jewelry up there in one of the galleries, but I think that's all she's doing at the moment.
Yeah, yeah. Hell yeah. You still doing the gas station thing? Is your dad still running that?
Not since he got sick, no. He
Okay.
does automotive business still, and keeps all like the old crazy people running.
Yeah.
That's usually his forte. It's a tiny little town, and it's got an eccentric population, and he likes to be very helpful to all their crazy cars. So
I'm sure. Especially out in the
we
desert.
get to see a lot of interesting cases. But no, I stopped working with the family business a couple of years ago to do the glass full time, and ended up getting my wife pregnant, and we have a 2-year-old at home now, so things kind of shifted a little bit.
Yeah, that'll do it to you.
And so I had to go for a little bit of stability, and one of my friends offered me a job at one of the local cannabis farms here, and I couldn't really say no to that. So
Hell,
it's
if I was
really
offered
nice
that
to
job
get
right now, bro, I would be all over it just because it'd be an experience down here in
it
Florida.
was great, you know. And I have a lot of experience with plants in general. When I was in college, I was going for botany before I dropped out and just started doing glass, and so
Cool.
it was right up my alley.
Hell yeah. Sound like we have like a lot of things in common because I'm a huge plant nut. I was going to get into landscape architecture right before the 2008 bullshit went down with the crash in the economy and stuff. And I was actually
Right.
signed up for school and everything to go start getting certified as a horticulturist locally here in town. And then I was gonna start taking some online classes through UF, the University of Florida. They got a huge horticultural program up there. They do a lot of the stuff with like the orange groves and a lot of the science. They actually work with Disney at Epcot and too, and doing all these natural pesticides and all kind of really cool shit. So I'm all into it. And when I was younger, I got kicked out of my house at 19 for getting caught 3 times growing pot in my house. So I'm very familiar with plants, and always wanted to grow some big pot plants. And man, I can't wait till that shit's like legally here in Florida, like where I could actually do that.
Right.
Or I just need to fucking
We were
move.
close enough, and my brother had friends move out to California when they were in high school, and so it's like a 20-hour drive to go to Northern California from here. So we would just go ahead and drive up there for 2 months a year. And that was where I got my first experience with cannabis. And it was awesome. And it was highly crazy because, you're not doing anything legal.
Mm-hmm.
And, so it was freaky, but at the same time, like, cannabis is an amazing plant, and it's hard once you get into cannabis to like let it go as a medicine after seeing all the benefits it has for people. So
Yeah.
when I had the opportunity to be able to grow medicine for people here, I was like, yeah, that's a no-brainer for me. It brings my family stability, and it's something I love to do, and it kind of already relates to the pipe business in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yeah. Well, so the pipe. So
yeah.
so you're 15 years old when you make your first pipe. So the guys that I guess initially showed you obviously didn't give a shit that you were 15 at the time. Showing you this kind
I
of
think
stuff.
I was like 13 when he showed me how to make the first one. I think I was 15 when I sold my first stuff to a head shop.
Huh.
And she was clueless. I could tell you that right off the bat.
Yeah,
she
I'm
just
sure.
had no idea that I was 15.
I mean, you wouldn't expect it, I guess. You look young. So I would assume at 15 you probably look like you were 12.
But yeah, I probably looked like I was 8. I mean, I was a short kid too. I have no idea how she was so clueless, but she was. She was just completely clueless. So I was down. I didn't care.
Yeah, fuck it, dude. You're making money making pipes at that age. That's amazing. That's and again, it's the drive and the entrepreneur spirit that you already have going on, which helps out a lot.
Yeah, I've always loved creating things in general. That was one of the things that I loved about helping my mom out when I was younger, doing her jewelry, and then helping my father because he did a lot of like weird little custom stuff and project cars and things like that. And it was always like the fabrication and the creation aspect of it that drove me. And my parents both were really adamant to introduce me to like every form of art they could possibly find, in an effort to just probably give me a cheaper hobby so that they weren't funneling so much of my own earned money back at me.
Yeah.
in something that they weren't sure was going to pan out. But as my dad says now, he's just like, that was a silly thing because we should have realized like right off the bat that there was no way you were going to put this down.
Yeah, it's amazing, dude. Like that's with my kids too. I've got my daughter's 18 and my son's 10 now, and it's like I've never been the kind of parent that have like pushed them into baseball and sports and all this other shit. It was like I'd introduce them to things, and if they were passionate about it, then I would then say, hey, you want to go further with this or whatever. But if they didn't give a fuck about it, on to the next thing. Let's see. I'm not going to push them, but it's amazing that your parents were still there to help support you and support your habit in a sense, because when you're young like that, it's like
time,
it's a habit.
Yeah, no, it's highly non-profitable for years, especially when you're a kid and you have no idea about like 90% of the things you should be doing to try and maintain a profitable business.
Mm-hmm.
And, my parents weren't exactly trying to like get that entrepreneur spirit going. They were just more like happy to see me in artistic mode.
Yeah.
They didn't want to kind of adulterate that, I guess, is the best way I could put it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Turn it into something less pure. They're like, he's just sitting in there until 3:00 in the morning on Saturdays, just lighting things on fire and then falling asleep and waking up at noon. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like, who cares?
So
doesn't do it on,
well, at that age, like, did you have like a regular childhood too? Like, did you go out and play and have, friends around the neighborhood and do that kind of shit, or were you always just like all about the glass?
I did have, for the most part, a regular childhood. I would bounce in and out. I've battled a little bit of depression over the years, and glass has been one of the greatest therapies that I've ever had. Mainly because I don't know how a lot of people's depression is, but mine stems from a lot of personal frustrations, and glass either teaches you to scream at the wall or become more patient. So I became more patient, and that's helped me a lot in a lot of facets of life. And so, it's been a great place to kind of retreat and to dump emotion. And I don't know, it's amazing, to be honest. I meditate a little bit here and there, but glass is a far more true meditation for me than anything.
Yeah, dude, I agree 100%. People ask me all the time, like, how I keep so cool all the time. I'm like, well, I meditate like 10 hours a day. I mean, it comes down to it, and it's with my gig over at the Mouse House. It's a little different when I'm doing it because I'm communicating with people, so I'm not like in this. I'm still got the flow state kind of going, but it's still a little different because I'm communicating to people when I'm in the hot shop. But when I'm actually on the torch and I'm doing my demos, I'm not necessarily verbalizing what I'm doing, so I can really get a good flow state going and still put on a fun show. But still, I'm like the torch for me is more of a meditative practice than the hot shop. I think maybe the hot shop too, because there is so much potential more danger, I guess, that's going on in there as well, and all it's just a lot more activity, I guess. It's not as easy. To get that going.
I mean, it's like you burn yourself in the flame studio, you're like, ow, my arm. You burn yourself in the hot shop, you're like, my leg.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a little stint when I was working at the gallery in Sedona. I would help them out here and there doing their hot shop work, and it was always amazing and very eye-opening, as I've heard you say on this show a bunch of times, about how you're learning about how glass truly behaves under heat and how we're just experiencing it kind of on a slower scale. And it gives you kind of an interesting perspective for how to do certain things that you didn't think were possible with boredom. But you can. You just kind of work at it and get a different mindset. Yeah,
man. It's such an odd experience. When I remember my first gather, and it was like understanding that I'm about to make something that's going to become solid eventually, but I'm so used to starting off solid. Oh, hey, dude, hold on one second. My wrestling show just started. Get back on again. I'm like, what is that noise? Okay. Okay, I'm back. But
all right.
But yeah, to start off with the liquid state first and then keep that shit soft until you're done is a whole nother concept when it comes to glass, and give me like a whole nother appreciation, but also it feel like it's given me a whole nother skill set that I never really thought I had, but I didn't. Like because I work my boro hotter now, which I always thought I worked that shit hot as hell. Always, like I've always been told I work my shit too hot, and I was like, maybe I was, but now I'm working it hotter. So what's the hell,
Right. And I feel the same way. I'll like get a bubble going now after helping them out and doing everything, and I won't have a punty on the end of it, and it'll be flopping all over the goddamn place. People will be like, whoa, 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 and I'm like, calm down. And I'm just rolling it back and forth like it's hot glass.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's soft.
Yeah.
And then I just puff into it, and it blows a nice perfect bubble, and they just look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, it's just a little hot. It's fine.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah, and it's just all about learning that workable state. And, I think a lot of people get that is if they put good effort into it in the first few months. I think they figure out what their workable state is, and that'll move around over the years. Sometimes the workable state will be a little cooler, sometimes it'll be a little hotter. And as that goes, that's also kind of conducive to different types of work. If you're gonna work a little cooler, you better not be working with a bunch of slime colors all the time or something.
Yeah, right. Well, but I teach at first when you're working hollow work is to the concept of having your heat sources. It's there to get your glass to a certain state to where you can manipulate it, whether it's just hot enough to blow out a cup for making a nice stem glass, whatever you want to do, or to get that shit soupy as fuck because you got to get it soupy as fuck. It depends on what you're doing. But really, at first, it's all about understanding the heat base and a little bit of heat at a time, But like when you're in the hot shop, dude, you're just like diving head first into 2,100 degrees of heat and hot and melted glass. There's no choice there.
Oh, yeah, it's humbling. For sure. It's if you do something wrong, it's you're like, oh, I did that wrong, and that's not going to ever get fixed. Okay, let's try again next time.
Yeah, and that's the thing.
It's not like, okay, I'm just going to fix this. You're like, nope, that's trash now.
Yeah, dude, it's all or nothing, and that's the thing about it too. It's like I remember first couple pieces I was doing, and Charlie, who was teaching me at work there, he's like, throw it away, grab a pipe, throw it away, grab a pipe. I'm like, what do you mean? I can fix it. She's like, dude, throw it away and grab a pipe. I'm like, all right. Because it is, man. You can't really start over, you know. It's as much as you want to fight it and stuff. It's like I was trying to make ornaments. I've been making pumpkins on this pumpkin grind for the last month, and it's like I started making ornaments at first, and I got a custom order for an ornament, and I swore, dude, I was fucking so frustrated because I couldn't make this stupid ornament, and I tried like 4 times making this just a basic ornament. And I got so frustrated at the very end, I blew this thing out as big and thin as I possibly fucking could. And it was like, I was so blown away by how little glass I had and how big of this paper thin vessel that I made at the end of this process.
Oh, yeah.
And I dropped water on it. I did everything I could to pop this thing, and it still wouldn't fucking pop. I dropped it into our bucket. It still was just like the pipe was sitting on top of the thing. It was crazy. I had to like smash it into the fucking bucket to actually get this thing to break. You know, it's just
crazy.
Yeah, it was super crazy, and I don't know why it was like that. I mean, I was like plugging it up, trying to create a vacuum so it would like implode itself. Like, I don't know. Glass is so weird. It's just, It's so crazy. But I'm completely off the rails here, dude. So now you're 15, you're selling pipes, and so spoons were some of the first things you were making. When from that point on, like, what did you start to get into in terms of your glass?
I've always had an obsession with making pendants and jewelry and stuff like that, I think because of my mom. And so I've made like a enormous amount of beads over the years. And then I got out of doing that a long time ago. Probably around the time I was starting to do pipes more seriously, around the time I was 16 or 17 when I got more mobile. Because before that, it was just like a nightmare. It was just like, what am I going to do? Ask my parents to go take me to a head shop to sell pipes? No.
Mm-hmm.
That's not going to work. That's not going to work at all. And then I had to scout out head shops that didn't card you. I mean, it was like this whole thing. And so I had a buddy of mine who was making pipes as well, and he would sell some stuff for me. And then other than that, I did a lot of, until I got to be 18 and could do my own major amount of running around, I did a whole heck of a lot of pendants and just jewelry stuff. I did some rings for a couple of years that I did a lot of. And then I've gotten into vessels on and off. I've made an enormous amount of shot glasses, I think. I don't even know how many shot glasses. They're quick and they're fun, and you can do a hell of a lot with a shot glass. If any of the glass blowers listening, if you've never made a shot glass, slap yourself, go into the studio and make a shot glass.
Dude, everything you can make in pipes,
it's awesome.
Yeah, totally. And that when the Operation Pipe Dreams came through, that was like some of the first things we were doing. I'm like, I had a crew full of 4 dudes, a shop with the 4 guys in there. I'm like, well, you guys can go do your own thing, or we can sit here and figure this shit out, you know. So of course we made dildos like everybody else in the fucking world, but you know, it was all these little.
Oh, that was the other thing I was making. Yeah.
yeah, that was, and they were good money for a while, for sure.
Oh, for a long time, yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, I kept telling these guys, it's like, just think about making a little small vessel, like any pattern we've taught you, wrapping rakes, whatever we were doing, and make a shot glass. Just make the bottom a little bit thicker and make the mouth a little bit wider than the bottom if you want, or whatever. You know, there's various sizes and shapes you can do, but just have fun with it. And I think shot glasses...
Well, the fun thing about a shot glass, too, is it just has to hold 2 ounces.
Right, exactly. Yep.
It can be any crazy-ass shape you want.
Yep. Yeah, and exactly.
As long as it's drinkable.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say too. It gives you a chance to experiment with your glass, and you can come up with something functional. It's a little shot glass, whether it's a new pattern you're trying to do, or a new shape, or a head, or a skull, or you know, whatever it is. It's hollows. Just pop the hole in the top and make it functional.
Yeah, exactly, and it could be a good stepping point for people who want to work with hollow, because hollow can be brutal if you've never. I mean, people that start working with hollow at the beginning, I commend you. That's a really good way to go. But when you start with just solid and you work your way into hollow, and especially if you don't have that sound basis where you know exactly how to evenly heat a larger piece of glass, like it can be extremely humbling really quickly. Dude,
I've got 2 guys that I work with that are phenomenal. I mean, these guys have been doing glass for 35 years, sculptors, and they are having the most frustrating time right now trying to step up their game in the functional scene. Trying to just do hollow glass, like getting extremely frustrated. They know what the fuck they're doing, but they have no idea what they're doing. It's one of those catch-22 things, you know? The
guy I learned from at the Renaissance Festival, it was very similar to that. Like, I don't know what it was, but he just didn't really ever get into making pipes or doing hollow work. And I remember being younger and kind of being like, well, do you ever make pipes? And he made these really cute little sculptural flower pipes that were just awesome, but he wouldn't do them very often. And they were like really, really funky because that carnival style, like those miniatures and stuff are like, they're delicate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, people are going to destroy that. Like, no matter how good the construction is, it's just, people are just going to destroy that thing. Like, they're just going to squish it in their hand and it's going to fucking break, and I don't know how he never really got, because like you said, the skill is there. Like they understand what glass is doing, but there's some sort of fear or some sort of just thing in their mind standing in their way to where they don't want to, or whatever it is, or they're just afraid to. And I can understand that, but it's shitty to see people with such amazing skill holding themselves back.
Yeah. And I kind of wonder too, because when you start getting into hollow work, because when you're working solid, your heat base is there for a long fucking time, and when you get into hollow work, it's not. Especially when you start adding things to it, and you really can fuck things up if you're not paying attention to your glass getting too cold, or like I saw a post a guy the other day was like spent like 8 hours or something on this piece, and he was frustrated because his mouthpiece wasn't perfect. And he was just fucking with his mouthpiece and was out of the kiln for too long, and it fucking cracked on him and he had to start all over again. So it's like those little nuances that you get so lost in the one little specific thing that you think you know what you're doing, and then you fuck it all up in the very end. And it's all based on understanding how the glass is hot or not, and when to heat it up, when not to heat it up. And it's interesting. It's interesting stuff. It's a whole different animal for sure. But I think anybody,
it is.
I think if you're doing hollow work right now, you should learn how to do sculpture, or at least do solid work. And if you're doing solid, you should learn how to do hollow. I think being versatile is ideal.
It's always good to be well-rounded.
Yeah.
As much as possible, that well-roundedness will help no matter what. Like, there's no lack of benefit to learning more techniques and, like relearning the basics in a different form of glass, like soft glass or hot glass, like the whole 9 yards. Like there's no way you're going to not have a benefit from that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, especially when you start getting into like Moretti or any kind of like soft glass on a torch, like that kind of stuff. I make a fucking mess usually, but I've had fun playing with it. Whether I burn the color out or not, it's still I'm making things out of it.
Yeah, I taught a bunch of bead classes over that a gallery in Sedona that I was at for a while. I taught a whole bunch of soft glass bead classes, and that was really humbling, because at the beginning of that I had very, very little soft glass experience. I knew how to make beads out of boro, and I'd made soft glass beads like once when I was like 11 or something like that. So it'd been at least 12 or 13 years since I had made any sort of soft glass anything. And so that was very, very interesting to get into, not only all the different types, but also getting into gaffer and being able to make things on the torch and then go ahead and use those in the hot glass studio. And I thought that was an amazing resource right there.
Yeah, dude, we've been talking about that at work too. We got a Bethlehem in the hot shop that we've been wanting to turn on and start doing same kind of thing, do some little collabs in there.
Do it. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
We did a vessel that was like, Kim Edwards came through and she did this beautiful little bird sitting on a log, and we put it inside of a vessel. It ended up falling apart at the end of it, but when it was all together, it was just an amazingly cute little piece to see all the little detail on the inside of a hot, like a vessel blown in the shop. It was just really, really cool, the juxtaposition almost of it.
Yeah.
Because that's always every time I make something super detailed and I want to encase it, in something way larger than I have the equipment to do for. So I'm just like, damn, if I could blow a big ass bubble and put it in there, this thing would be sweet.
Well, then you see like Kiva Ford, who's doing shit that like teeny tiny.
Oh my god.
You know what I mean? He's in a whole other spectrum of that shit. It's like fucking mind blowing. Like if there's a class to take, dude, that's a class to take is Kiva Ford.
That's for sure. I love when he does the perspective list shots.
Yeah.
Because I love showing them to my friends and just being like, here, look at this. And they're like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I'm like, okay, here, hold on. Next photo. And they're like, what the fuck?
I know, right?
And I'm like, okay, last photo. And they're like, no, that's not the same thing. I'm like, it is.
I know, you think it's like this big giant vessel and it's this little teeny tiny thing.
Exactly.
But then he makes big ones that are the exact same. I mean, exactly the same. It's proportions, everything.
Right.
It's mind blowing. Just such a good skill set that kid's got and brain.
I make these teeny tiny spoons because I don't know if you've seen my Glastronauts on my page at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've been doing them for like 8 years now. I like to equip them with all sorts of different stuff, and I get challenges from people that want customs. I've done all sorts of goofiness, and I made a whole bunch of ones holding functionals that were actually functional and to scale. And so I was making like a spoon that was 4 millimeters or 5 millimeters long, so this little dude could hold it. That actually had a bowl and everything pushed into it. And I love taking pictures of them on the bench, right on the top of the mason board. And then like people are like, "Oh, that's really weird. Like the shape's not quite good on that." And then I'm like, "Okay, and now here's sitting on a dime." And they're just like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Like I know, I love it. And I know a bunch of people make them, but it's still just super satisfying when you make something super tiny that would actually be functional if your super tiny sculptural guy was alive.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like to go back to like the old, I don't know what the hell video or movie it was, but like the dude was like hitting like the tiniest, maybe it was Cheech and Chong, maybe. I don't know. He was hitting like this littlest tiny bit of the roach left over and then inhales it, and fucking swallows the cherry. And I've always seen like these.
Up in smoke.
Yeah. Okay. And I've seen like the little teeny tiny pipes, like you're saying. It's like, I'd be afraid I'd inhale that motherfucker or something. So choking on this little glass pipe.
I've made some little one hitters that people wanted, and it always just baffled me because, like, I loved making them for a little while. They were only about maybe 2 inches long at the longest. Just these little itty bitty things, and the guys that bought them always had the biggest, gruffest beard. And I'm like, how is this a thing? Like, how does this make any goddamn sense at all?
They got like part the
this
ocean.
This guy's got to be lighting his face on fire,
And those are more like
but it was
quarter
9
hitters.
times out of 10. Yeah. It was just like weird, and they would almost always use them as hash pipes too. And then I'm sitting there thinking like, so you're lighting something that doesn't light as easy on that first go. So you're sitting there with this flame. You're like, come on, you son of a bitch. Like, no, none of that sounds fun.
No, smells funny too, probably.
Yeah, but no, they were like, hey, can you make me another one of those? I lost it in my car. Like, sure.
Yeah, I wonder why. It's 2 inches.
Exactly. Like, whatever.
Yeah, that's so funny. What inspired you to do that? Was it just because you've been doing miniatures for so long? It just kind of went with the flow?
Yeah, it all started, the Glastronauts really, like, and just trying to equip them with different things. And the Glastronaut itself, I'm actually wearing the first one. I've had them forever, and I can't really recreate in my mind that night. I just remember at the end of it coming out with the Glastronaut and being like super stoked. So I don't know what I was doing that night.
Interesting.
To be honest, I keep thinking about it because I was thinking about it as I was thinking about being on the show with you, and I was like, I really don't know where the hell that came from. But I really absolutely adore it. It just kind of came out of the studio one night. I know I wanted to make something without a face. I do remember that.
Interesting.
Because I had a fear of making faces for a long time, that I would make something that didn't really hold a true expression or would just, generally look weird. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people have that with sculptural stuff. And the Glastronaut was one of the things that came out of that. It was just like a faceless thing that could still hold a lot of emotion because I could do all the different body language stuff with it.
Yeah.
And I love those little guys. I've made a couple hundred of them over the last 7 or 8 years, and they're all either doing goofy little thumbs up or peace signs or smoking a joint or, holding some giant ray blaster. And I did one who was just like holding a pig. I don't know. Somebody wanted one holding a pig. I'm like, sure. Yeah, okay. You got a pig. And then my favorite ones to date were a guy, and he lives in California, and he really, really, really loves the Hawaiian culture. And so he had me do one with a hula skirt and a coconut bra, and another one wearing board shorts and has a ukulele.
That's amazing.
You can imagine on that scale, it was a little bit of a challenge, but it was so much fun, and it gave me so much more like respect for the people that do nothing but that micro miniature stuff.
Yeah.
because I love doing miniatures, but man, there's some people out there that just do some amazing work when it comes to that.
Yeah, I love miniature stuff, man. Like, not even just in glass, but just in general. Like, just some of this. Like, we have these shadow boxes over at Disney. This artist does, and they're like, it's a little miniature replica scale of like a scene in a movie or something like that. And every fucking detail you could imagine that is in that scene from the movie is in this little diorama that he's made, and they're lit up in the inside of them, and it's like they're incredible. It's just always blows me away. There's some artist I follow on Instagram. I can't think of his name, but he does peanut sculptures, and he just uses like the peanut shell, and then he puts a little clay over it, and molds these little. He does like the Beatles. He'll do like a full band, and they're all holding instruments and like just full details. He builds the sets for them, and I love all that. The miniature stuff has just always been so intriguing to me. Like when I was younger, my grandfather used to do dollhouses, and just like for a fun hobby he did on the side. He owned a chicken restaurant, but he liked building things out of wood and started making these little miniature dollhouses all of a sudden. And he was doing the furniture for him and all this other shit. And I was just like, I would sit and watch him do this, paint little details and stuff. It's just incredible. It's always neat seeing that kind of stuff. And I still, to this day, just have a fondness for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved miniatures. Like, I got into the glass miniatures, and then that got me into doing like the little tabletop games, like Warhammer and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And I would sit there and meticulously paint those ones and play those games, and those were always super fun. The same thing, just always had an obsession with like the little micro kind of detail stuff. And then when it comes to creating it, the challenge that comes along with creating all the little micro detail stuff is just amazing, because it's completely unforgiving. You know what I mean? You're like, okay, I took this little ray gun, I put these 20 little details on it. Now I'm going to put it in his hand, and if I get any part of any of the details hot again, I got to do it over. Like, there's so it's like, and I caught flack for when I first bought the mini torch, one of the little Smiths. And because I've done a lot of this micro little itty bitty stuff on my minor on the Nortel, and I can do 90% of like the little itty bitty stuff I do on the minor on the Nortel. It just is a huge pain in the ass, and I'd much rather have a tool that's like much easier to use than to fight myself on a giant torch.
Oh, dude, the Smith hand torch.
What I'm doing.
And it's so funny. That thing's been around forever. As jewelers have been using that thing for centuries. Well, I mean, centuries, but
my mom had one when I was a kid. My mom used to let me use hers when I was teeny tiny, and I was just like, oh, this is cool. That was one of the first things I did as a little kid, helping my mom in the jeweler studio. I was like, I want to say 6 or 7 or something like that. And she would sit me over in her little station, and I would take her little hand torch, and she had little scraps of silver, and I would take the torch and ball those little scraps of silver up so that she could use them as little sculptural elements in her jewelry. And I would just sit there and take all her little scraps and ball them all up, and then I would tack all them together and make like little grape clusters and just like goofy little stuff with the little torch and stuff. And it was really interesting and fun. And that was my first experience with the Smith torch. So whenever I saw that people were using them with glass, I was like, oh, holy crap, why the hell did I not think of that?
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because like the guys I work with, everybody's got national hand torches, and that's like their hand torch, and it's just too bulky for me to use as a hand torch, and they all use it like nothing. Like, if they're doing lace work or whatever, they use it for details and polishing things up or whatever. And so I had them order me a Smith, just so I had it there for my detail, because I have one here at my studio, but I needed it for work, and I just kept getting frustrated trying to use this fucking national when and I got like a 2-hole tip for the thing, so it was a nice small flame, but still it's like so bulky with this little small hand torch.
Right.
And
I pull mine out every once in a while and look at it, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
You can go back in there.
Yeah, exactly.
I like you. I have fond memories of you. I'll bring you out again, but no, not now.
Yeah, that's how mine is, dude. It's so old looking. It's like, God, it's been to hell and back, and it's made so many awesome, fun, stupid things when I was first getting into glass. So I'll never get rid of it. Like, I'll have it forever.
Oh, I know. Somebody asked me one time, like one of my apprentices over the years, he was just like, oh, would you sell me one of your torches? And I just kind of looked at him like he stabbed me. He's like, and he just like looks at me. He's like, what? And I'm like, no, I will never sell a torch. You're insane.
Yeah.
I don't buy these things to sell them. I like tools. I keep them for life.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
I've said that to a bunch of people too, and they look at me like I'm crazy. And they're like, well, what if you went and bought like a Herbie and you didn't like it? I'm like, first of all, if I bought a Herbie, I would like it.
You would hopefully like it. God.
I've worked on plenty of them. I know I would like
Yeah,
it.
exactly.
It would be wonderful. But I wouldn't complain about something that is like infinitely tunable. Like there's just so many, like, all those arguments about people like saying things like that are just silly. It's just like, no, if I'm going to buy a tool, I'm going to use it to its fullest extent and to the end of its life, basically. You know what I mean? And I think that's just my dad's old school attitude, because he grew up in the 50s, and he's got that very old school attitude where he's just like, did it break? Duct tape it back together. We'll use it for a little while longer.
Exactly.
You know? And I think that's one of the reasons I never really upgraded from my major minor. And I think about it every once in a while. I look at it and I'm just like, oh, it'd be nice to have something sexier or fancier or whatever. But that's really all it comes down to in my mind, is like, it's just going to get me there a little faster. It's not that I can't get there. I look at my little Nortel major minor as like the Volkswagen of, I could go buy a Lamborghini. I can get there really, really fast, but my Volkswagen will get me there, and I'll be happy along the way.
Yeah, man, that's funny you said that, because I started. Well, I learned on a national, and then was given that national when I left my apprenticeship, and then went and got a minor bench burner to buy my first torch for myself, and I had an ex of mine who wanted to start learning how to do glass, so I gave it to her years and years ago, just to kind of get started on stuff. But I never got rid of that national, and we always considered the minor to be, like you're saying, like we didn't call it the Volkswagen, but it was like the Yugo, or we called it something like that back in the day. And it was always like
the economy.
Yeah, and it was a great torch, man. I mean, I made bubblers, sure. I mean, you name it, big stuff. Even I was rocking on this little fucking minor bench burner.
Yeah, I've heard people tell me all sorts of shit that cannot be made on these torches.
Yeah, I call bullshit.
And I will challenge you to scroll down my page.
Yeah.
And tell me what cannot be made on a major minor, and see if it's not there, because it's probably there.
Yep. And like you're saying, bro, it takes you a little bit longer to do it, but you're not in a fucking race, so whatever.
No, I'm not in a race at all. No, I don't, and I don't need, it gives me more time to, like, actually see what the glass is doing in a lot of ways. And I'm not going to knock any of the other torches at all. They're great torches. I've worked on GTTs. I've worked on Herbies. I've worked on Bethlehems. I worked on a couple, like, weird off-brand, like that weird, I forget what it is, where it switches from one torch to the other and it's like a circle. I've worked on a bunch of different stuff, and they all have their pros and cons, If I was going to get a more expensive torch, I'd kind of want a Herbie, just because of that adjustability and the ability to just be like, oh, I'm going to retune it for this for a couple of years, retune it for that for a couple of years, or something like that. But other than that, like, I don't see myself ever getting rid of this torch unless it melts.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
if I haven't done that yet, I don't think I'm going to do it.
Yeah, right. Especially when you're like a young kid rocking that thing out. It's like, if you're going to do it, you would have done it then. So you should be all right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So some questions for you too regarding like the business stuff. So, you started doing your glass, and your parents are entrepreneurs and stuff. And did they teach you any kind of like business acumen at all, like for yourself, or did you just kind of pick some things up from watching them, like in terms of that kind of stuff?
We live in a little itty bitty town, so I learned about a lot of what not to do.
Yeah.
In a business, more than what to do. I mean, my parents are both amazing. But my dad is a little bit too much of a bleeding heart to be an entrepreneur. And so he tends to lose his shirt more often than not when it comes to things, just because his effort to help people. So they taught me to be a good person and to not screw people over, which I think is an amazing thing in business. Yeah. And you don't see it very often, but it's not going to make you rich. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I think that they instilled that kind of honesty and the hardworking premise in me more than anything, and I'll always appreciate him for that, for sure. But the business aspect of it, I've kind of had to bumble along a little bit on my own and figure out, again, more of what not to do than what to do. And I've gotten a lot better at it over the years, but it has its ups and its downs. And this industry in the amount of time that I've been trying to participate in the industry itself has changed so vastly. It's extremely hard for me to keep up with like what everybody's buying and selling and what the fads are and everything. You know how it is. It's just a little. Years ago, it got really overwhelming, and it's the same thing with all the information availability. It goes hand in hand with that. You know, all these people have all this information available, so they're able to use it to their advantage more, which, you know, it just compounds and snowballs, and then it's really awesome. This industry is amazing, and it's inspirational every day to open up my phone and go on Instagram and just be like, holy shit. But yeah, it's the business aspect of it. I definitely need to focus on a bit more than the artistic aspect of it and the creation aspect of it. And I gotta say, I do fall into that category of artists where I'll make a whole ton of stuff and just be like, oh yeah, I gotta sell this stuff. That's right. Shit.
Yep, that's the next part.
Yeah, and you know, I do have a few shops that work with me fairly regularly, and they've paid a lot of my bills over the years, and I'm, you know, very fortunate to have that. And then the advent of social media has been huge for my ability to just get things out there and to meet new people and things like that, because like I said, I've been stuck in this little town forever.
Yeah.
So I don't get a whole lot of opportunity to get out there in the greater world and, you know, see what's going on and participate. And so social media has been awesome for that. Yeah. And it's been really cool to, you know, see things like the Tournament of Fire and things like that starting to come up, which are, you know, just another way for all of us to kind of bring the two halves of the industry together, which I feel like there's somewhat of a disconnect sometimes. At least I've seen a disconnect in it, to where there's a lot of artists that don't know many of the shop owners or shop buyers or just people who work in the industry in general. They just kind of, you know, do their reclusive, I'm going to sit in my studio and make things thing. And I think that things like the Tournament of Fire and things like all of our individual social media campaigns that we're always trying to promote for ourselves have been huge for kind of bringing us all together, for better or for worse.
Yeah, and it's exposed the world to this community on top of all of it. You know, besides the business side of things, it's really given light to what the hell's going on in the world of glass out there, not just in like the art scene, even though the pipes, you know, a lot of the pipes are arts, but just in general, it's social media has been a huge game changer for a lot of folks. And it's so funny. Like, I still talk to people that don't have Instagrams and shit that are in business and are in glass, and I'm like, the fuck are you waiting for? You know, I understand.
That's how I feel about it.
It takes time, but man, once you get going, you get going.
I mean, it takes time and it doesn't, you know, I mean, if you have a really, really awesome product and nobody else has that, you might just explode and go viral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's been plenty of people who went from 500 followers to 5,000 followers super fast and ended up being able to support themselves on their glass because they had a really awesome idea that they've had for years and done for years, and they just finally decided to put it on a platform where more people can see it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's cool that they're able to express themselves that way through glass or whatever it is, you know, like it's such a neat concept. Like, I was reading something today on Instagram, this couple that goes around, they travel the world in this like high society type of thing, but they're getting paid to go hang out in mansions and these high-end resorts and go travel the world in yachts and shit. And just because they're promoting these companies that have these things through their social media.
Right.
It's amazing. It's like,
yeah.
who would have thought that shit would have happened 20 years ago? You know, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah. I've been like going to champs and age and everything like that over the years too. It was interesting to see the advent of all of that. And then, you know, some of these people that I've met over the years that all of a sudden, you know, some of the like promotional girls and things like that just exploded on Instagram. And then, you know, they're sitting there walking around. I'm like, oh man, you were, you know, over there like holding a sign for so-and-so last year. What are you doing now? And they're like, oh, I own 2 head shops.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
Like, what? They're like, oh, I run an advertising company off of a social media campaign because I just basically jump around in a flashy costume, in a skimpy costume, and got a whole bunch of followers, and then used that follower base to do things. And I'm just like, fuck, you're brilliant.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's
and
super
they're just
smart.
like, well, you know, that's how life is. You know, sex sells. And I'm like, all right, well, you know, I don't think they want to look at me, so I'm screwed. I got to try and be funny, and that doesn't work too well most of the time either. But
Yeah.
at least sometimes it does.
Well, talking about speaking of your Instagram, I was reading earlier tonight. I was going through some of your stuff and saw that we're doing some daily auctions to help raise funds for your wife to get her little food truck thing going or something of that nature. So, I guess she's got some culinary background or something going on.
Yeah. She worked in the culinary industry over in Houston before she moved back over here, and just makes food that absolutely blows my mind. And she's talked about an enormous amount of different ideas about having a food truck or doing a restaurant or, just a bunch of different things. So I'm trying to get a little fund together to either get us a food truck or some sort of down payment on something, or at least get us into a living space where she can have a clean kitchen and make something from home.
Yeah.
Just so she can have something culinary to do, even if she doesn't want to do it as a business. But because she enjoys feeding people so much and making awesome food, I really enjoy just trying to put as much as I can into it. And the daily auctions have been huge for that. I'm just slowly accruing a little bit here and there, and let's see what we're going to do with it. I'm sure I'll keep everybody posted and make goofy faces at everybody while I do whatever we're going to do.
Well, I think it's cool, man. Like, that you're taking advantage of your following in a healthy, positive way to help out your wife, because obviously she's been supporting you for however many years y'all been together with your crazy ass and doing glass and everything else going on, So more power to you. It's awesome.
Yeah. We had a weird kind of experience. We grew up right next to each other. She moved to Texas, and we never really knew each other as kids. And when she moved back, we kind of re-met each other, even though we were in grade school together. And the more and more we learn about each other's early childhoods, the more and more we realize, like, we were like 2 blocks away from each other our entire childhood and never met. It's just like this weird little serendipitous thing for us to meet after being so close for so long.
Yeah, it's so funny. Just wasn't quite time yet.
Yeah. We've been together for about 4 years now, and it's been the most positive change I've ever had in my life. So,
hell yeah,
I definitely can't knock that at all.
Yeah. So how's the family dynamic working for you with juggling the glass and having a family and having another, because you have another job on the side too, so it's got to be tricky to balance that.
Yeah, I do the 8-hour job during the day and then come home and hang out with them until usually about 9 or 10 o'clock on nights that I work in the studio, and then I work until about 3 in the morning usually, and then I'll wake up at 7:30 and go to work.
Yeah.
And just try and do that every day that I can possibly do that.
Yeah, man. I remember that life. I did that for years and years and years. And you got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
It's a struggle, but I promise it's so worth it in the end when everything pans out and you're back to just doing glass full time. And she's got her cooking thing going, and kids are back in school and like all that shit. It's all the struggle and the sacrifices that you make early on in your careers are so worth it down the road.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, having the stability for the baby right now is like number one.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that was the one thing. Like, I love glass and I love creating things and selling them, but there's a big feast or famine aspect to doing the whole solo studio experience.
Yeah.
So that it's just not really for me without having a better network built, which is completely on me over the years of, having those accounts made that are really consistent and really regular. I just didn't have that stability at that moment. I've had it before, and I'll have it again in the future, I'm sure. But at that moment I didn't, and it wasn't worth waiting around for it and seeing them suffer.
Yeah, man. And it's hard right now. I mean, I had Chris Dickey on a couple weeks back, and we were talking about it. Like, the industry right now is in this weird flux of, like, there's a lot of guys out there and gals that are successful or were successful that are struggling, and there's, like, a lot of newbies that are coming up that are successful, and then there's a lot of newbies that are not successful at all, and they're struggling, and it's so weird out there right now. I don't know what it is, if it's just this huge oversaturation of glass being made, with the import stuff coming in on top of it, and having 25 trade shows a year. I mean, I'm exaggerating a little bit,
Right.
but still, it's just, I don't know, it's just weird. It's like, I think it's just the oversaturation of everything right now. It's just, everybody's it's like, it's such an awesome, amazing time to be a glassblower right now, because now we have all these little boutique color companies coming out with all this new color we can get our hands on, and so much to use. But it's like, it's like you're saying, it's definitely feast or famine. And it's funny you say that, because I was getting a tattoo done last week with my daughter, and the tattoo artist that was working on me was saying he used that exact same thing. He said, it's, as an artist, it's feast or famine. It's like, it is not an easy lifestyle. It's a fun lifestyle, but it's also not easy.
Yeah, and the more you have depending on you, the harder it is to maintain that.
Mm-hmm.
And without some sort of amount of ample success, which can be met with sacrifice on the family side again. So it's a weird thing to juggle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I knew going into it, like, I was like, okay, like, if I can't make this work within a few months, and we go through the savings and everything like that, like, I really have to look at a day job. And it was funny. I was selling a freaking rig to the guy I work for, and he was like, "Hey, your brother says you've done this before. You want a job?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?"
Hell yeah.
That sounds cool. And yeah, it's like the golden job. I just like fell into it, and everybody I know is just like, "I hate you." And I'm just like, calm down. They're like, "No, you have the best job, and then you have the best job at home. What the hell?" And I'm just like, well, the job at home is entirely me. Like, the other job, yes, I got super fucking lucky, and I got a job that everybody covets, but it's still a job, and farming is farming. It's hard ass work.
Yeah.
And I think people have a false expectation of most industries. And anytime you're creating anything, whether you be farming or be working with glass or anything like that, people have that, like, oh, that doesn't look that hard kind of attitude a lot. And, it's always nice. The glass is really nice because you can just put it in your hand.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Here you go. And then they go, oh, shit, fuck. All right, here you go. Take this back. And you're just like, there we go. All right. And then they stand there and they're like humbled and they're like, okay, all right. Can I buy a pipe?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know, dude. Go on.
Oh, I was just saying it's a neat experience.
It really is. And I always love when I'm doing stuff on stage, even, or with friends around, because I'm doing it for so long. Being a quote unquote professional, I make it look easy. And I hear it all the time, but I also hear it all the time, like, oh, I could do that. I'm like, fucker, come back here and turn this torch on first, and then we can go from there, kind of thing. Let me see how easy this really is. You know what I mean? It's like, it's so funny. And I get asked all the time, like, how long does it take you to get to this proficiency? And I'm like, well, how long does it take to learn how to play guitar? That's always my answer now. Yeah. It's like, that's no other really easier way to put it than just to say, how long does it take to play a guitar? Because either you can play a guitar or you can play a fucking guitar. What do you want to do, And I'm not just going to melt glass. I want to actually make things out of it, Yeah,
yeah. I always just told people, I was like, have you ever met anybody that listened to another language for a few seconds and then knew how to speak it? Yeah. And they just looked at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, yeah, think about that one for a minute.
It's so true, man. And glass is its own language. It is a language of its own.
Yeah. It's all a physical memory group that you don't use to do anything else. You never sit there and spin something. Yeah. You're never battling gravity and using centrifugal force in your daily life.
Yeah.
Like it's just not something that you do. So it takes a fair bit amount of like physical like training to get your body to want to do it in the first place. And that's like notwithstanding all of the mental learning that you have to do just to understand what the hell's going on. That's without color. And then you add color into all of that. And it's just like, oh, okay, here you go. Well, are you ready to pull your hair out? Here you go. Here's some more stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Especially all the new colors that are out there and available.
Yeah, which I must say, all those new colors are so much more friendly to each other and to the glass than anything that when I was growing up. Holy fucking hell.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Like, even some of the stuff that's like mixed down with China white and things like that, that's still like, relatively iffy when it comes to heating up quickly and things like that. It's still way easier than the things that we were using 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, when we had one green and it sucked.
Oh yeah.
You know,
Yeah, well, I had
jade.
a lot of leftover Draconis. I was really lucky.
Oh, dude, you're the first person besides myself that has brought that brand up on this show, and still to this
What?
yeah, and still to this day, dude, that is some of my favorite color that has ever been produced ever to this day.
Yeah, all you color hoarders out there,
Dude, my
go
buddy
fucking
Mark,
find some Draconis.
my buddy Mark has got a shit ton of it still.
Yeah, it's sexy shit. I wouldn't sell it.
Fuck no. I don't think he's ever
Yeah.
going to use it. I think he just, like, when he was, I don't know if you ever heard me tell the story, but he was like my first apprentice. And I was only on the torch for maybe like 2 years, but it was, I'm glad I had an apprentice because I learned a lot teaching. And,
I was going to say you learned a lot about what not to do, but teaching him what not to do.
oh yeah, totally. But like 3 months into him working with me, he was working for a wood manufacturer making chairs and Adirondacks and stuff, and fucking cut the middle of his tip of his middle finger off on the bandsaw.
Ooh.
Yeah, tell me about it. And it took him a year to recover from it, like physically from it. And during that period of time, he just bought books. He bought all the essential lampworking books. He read up on shit. It was on the forums, and he bought a piss ton of color when it was all of sales were going on. He bought like 5 pounds at a time. Like he's got old school OG moss. He's got all the old, like he's got like when like the Canary was first coming out, and it was like every batch was a different color shade of red. Like when they were still
Right.
figuring out their formulas. I mean, it's still even this day you go buy certain colors and one batch is different from the next. It's just how it is. But yeah, dude, I'm really curious on how much Draconis colors he has, and I'm pretty sure he has the majority of every kind of color that they had. All the satins and man, if people don't understand what that color was, it always reminded me of like Dove soap, like liquid soap, that real pearly, just beautiful.
Dude, it's like toothpaste when you were a kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like metallic-y, like swirly. Yeah. It is. It's like that shampoo look. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Where that like super crazy metallic satiny. It's I mean like and Greasy Glass is making really nice satin colors, and they're close. But I gotta say, I've seen them in person, and they're not Draconis.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I guess
they aren't quite there yet.
And from what I heard, the color was way too expensive to manufacture for what they were selling it for, and they couldn't keep up with it or something of that nature.
That's what I heard way back when was
Yeah.
why they went out of business in the first place.
Yeah, we got to egg those guys
Which
on to
makes sense.
come back. I mean, fuck, dude, they could.
Well, that's what
Yeah.
Ryan from Greasy Glass, he had posted something saying that that's how he was developing the satin colors was in conjunction with the original maker of Draconis.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
Yeah. So unless I got that way off, and if I did, that's on me. But I'm pretty sure that's what he had said.
Yeah, I should get
in
him
one
on
of his
here.
posts a while back. You should. He's a pretty cool guy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the next phase of the show is to start bringing like some of the color manufacturers on and some of the businesses out
Dude,
there.
having Abe on here would just be a riot.
Yeah,
Gotta
you know.
get Abe on here.
Well, it's kind of funny. Him and I, we were chit chatting last year when he was in the middle of redoing right when they were first getting started to redo all their stuff over there, and he's like, "Hey, bro, you got time tonight?" And it was like 12:30 my time, and I'm like, "Dude, I'm in Florida,
Right.
bro." I was like actually getting in bed right now, and it was the one, and I still to this day shoot myself in the foot because I know how busy he is, and the opportunity to get him on the show is going to be few and far between. And I had an opportunity to get him on the show, and I should have just been like, "Let me go get a cup of coffee. I'll call you in 2 minutes," kind of thing.
Right.
But
Yeah, I always just like that I get to pick his brain for like 30 seconds or a minute when I see him at the shows. He's like always running around like a maniac at those things.
yeah.
He's a crazy cat. He's a nice guy though.
Yeah, absolutely. He sure is. Yeah, I want to bring them all on. We'll get Paul on here and get all the big boys and the names and those that have really been a big part of the evolution of this industry from day one.
Oh, for sure. Like, and that it would be interesting to have. And I know that like there's a lot of like drama and everything like that, but it would be really interesting to have like some sort of I don't even know how to put it, like a discussion table where
like a roundtable discussion.
Somebody who is like a moderator who is a relatively neutral person got them all together and had like a discussion about what the origins of everything kind of were back in the day without talking about like, okay, well, what we're competing with now and, backbiting and everything, but just all the like, as far as I know, the first white was this. And then somebody could be like, oh no, like 4 years before we did this, and then it led to that, and that, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I just think it'd
totally
be interesting to get all of them in one area. I think it'd also be a little bit of a nightmare because of like the powder keg kind of opportunity there. But
Hey, man,
at
that'd
the
be
same
fun.
time, they're all such amazing resources of information.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, holy hell.
Well, I know Nick and I
And,
are with Glass Roots. We were talking about these doing some panel discussions eventually down the road for because they're doing all these classes and stuff now and trying to coordinate and figure out how to do them without them interfering with the shows. And I would love to do that.
Right.
Have a panel. I mean, fuck, you go to all these different cons that are out there. I mean, there's a BoroCon going on soon, but I don't think they're going to do any kind of discussion panels and stuff. But to have some kind of glass-based discussion panel from everything from having artists who are OG artists to the people that manufacture our color from back in the day. Bring all the companies on, or even like the tubes.
It would be really
It'd be
cool.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to have like, some sort of a consensus of the history of pipe making and the history of our like industry as a whole. Maybe not pipe making, just the color aspect of it and things like that. Because I know there's a lot of people that have like big questions about where a lot of things come from and things like that.
Yeah, dude.
I love the history of it all, and it'd be really cool.
Yeah, me too. I would love to put together like a big family tree, like actually put one together and really figure out because it's hard nowadays because of how many self-taught people are out there per se. I mean, there's a whole Dustin Revere generation, that just are based on his videos online and stuff. But to really fine tune it, even just to do the history of pipes, like where did the Sherlock first come from? And the Sherlock's been around forever, but like who made the first glass Sherlock? Or, it's just, I mean, even there's just so much like you're saying, the history of what goes on in just the pipe itself goes back thousands of years just because of the ceremonial aspect of it. But then you get into like, okay, who then made the first bubbler, and then who made the first this, and who made the first that, and it'd be kind of fun, it'd be fun to break that down and really create that family tree that way.
It's nice to see the origins of a lot of our techniques that are thousands of years old too. I mean, you look at like wigwags or reversals or whatever you want to call them. They're, you find Chinese pipes that are 2,000 years old where people did wigwags. Mm-hmm. You're like, well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
They didn't off-axis them or anything, but they freaking did some line work and made it interesting. So it's like that's pretty cool. And then the core forming in Japan, where they have just the most crazy intricate patterns you've ever imagined, made out of freaking core formed cane work that are just mind boggling.
Yeah.
It's just really, really cool because everybody's, got their own idea of like what glass is and where it came from. And it really influences like what they do with it. And there's so much information out there. It's really easy to form like a very specific perspective and then develop a type of like art around that. And I think that's really, really cool. And you don't see it in too many mediums. And I think the reason you see it in glass is because of the difficulty. It really kind of weeds out a lot of people who aren't willing to like put the work in. And B, just the free form nature of it and being able to just be like, okay, well, what shape is this object? It's these 5 shapes. I'm going to break it down and make those 5 shapes and put them together. And look, there it is.
Yeah.
And I think clay gives you that option, but I think a lot of other things are extremely limiting compared to glass as a medium, which is really cool.
Yeah.
And the history of our industry is just awesome because of that open freeform nature of it and the nature of like all of the history that all these people are making color. Well, look at the colors that they were making a couple hundred years ago in Italy and stuff like that. They have some really interesting kind of light shifting stuff that looks very similar to serum.
Yeah it's true.
That was made with like niobium and a couple other things. So it's interesting to see like that the origins of a lot of these colors are a lot older than what people think they are. And that it all just really boils down to fine chemistry and some experimentation. It's all an art form of its own.
Yeah, man. And then you get into like the just like stained glass windows and just handmade glass for windows from centuries and centuries ago. And we've got a guy, and we're not in my town now in Orlando, but where I used to live over in St. Pete, and he does window restorations. And there was a company up in Kentucky that used to have these tables that they would ladle and pour all the glass out onto. Then the tables had patterns and textures on them that they would pick up in the glass for different pieces of panels for windows. And from what I heard, they were throwing these tables away. So people that needed this glass to be replaced in their windows, they couldn't get it because the tables were all destroyed. And they had the sheet glass was there still, you could buy it, but the tables were gone. And he was actually going to these places and trying to find these tables that they had that before they threw them away, and was able to find a lot of these old tables that they had and was able to purchase them so he can potentially make his own shit down the road. I don't know if he ever came up with that or did it or not, but it was just seeing his studio and seeing just the variety of sheet glass and all the different textures and colors and patterns and stuff that's been around for centuries and centuries and centuries. I mean, I remember going to a museum and seeing these little perfume bottles that the Parisians had made. Like, I don't know, I think it was like they were like 400 or 500 years old or some shit. And it looked just like some of the same shit I made when I first got started. They were wrapped and raked, it was cobalt glass. Like, it was just so neat to see this old stuff. And it was humbling to see that this shit that I'm learning how to make right back then, almost 20 years ago, was being made hundreds and hundreds of years ago already by somebody that had no idea what the fuck they were doing, or they did, and they figured out how to make it even better.
Right, and you got to think about it like like that whole information gap that we talk about just in the last few years, and how much that was affecting people. And there was towns that were, and for that matter, islands like Murano that were totally sequestered, and people were not allowed to transfer information. So if for somehow you were getting a hold of glass and getting a hold of the means to do it, and you didn't have somebody directly teaching you, there's like a fundamental learning process that we all go through. You know,
and then you guys have guys like
very similar things.
Yeah, it's so true. And then you have like the Lino Taglia Patrons that come over here and start telling us the secrets, and then now he's like a bad guy over in Italy. It's even still to this day, and he's such an amazing fucking artist. Even at his age, the stuff he's still cranking out, it's incredible.
Oh, all those masters that came over with that whole movement.
Yeah.
And I know he was one of the first that really got blackballed for it, but there's a whole bunch more that came along behind him. They're just the same thing. And they're just, some of them are up in their 70s and 80s, and they're doing shit that just is amazing still to this day. And they'll even tell you at the end of their demos, they're like, I can barely fucking see that thing. Yeah. And you're like, what? Like, I need my other glasses. You're like, this whole time, really? You were blind? It's just muscle memory at this point. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And it's amazing to see them all do their thing. And that was one thing that the gallery over in Sedona, they did a lot of artists coming in and doing residencies. Sorry. I had a brain fart there. And so I got to meet a lot of just kind of crazy soft glass artists that I had no perspective for at the time, because I hadn't really gotten into hot shop work very much. And as now I'm just looking back and realizing holy shit, I met some really freaking crazy famous people in the soft glass world.
And dude, the hot shop artists
super awesome and humble.
Yeah, they are, but they're also the hot shop guys I know a lot of guys that are crazy hot shop artists. It's a whole different mentality. Just to be just a hot shop guy is or gal, it's a whole different type of person.
Oh yeah. And it's so much more of a teamwork thing. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of borosilicate workers in general don't have much context for that, because they have their little studios, and when they collaborate, they don't, it's not like you hand something off to somebody and they, work it with two hands real quick while you're doing something else on the other side. It's just not. It's teamwork, but it's like a more of a puzzle piece kind of thing. Okay, I'm going to make these puzzle pieces, you make those puzzle pieces, and we'll put them together, and they'll make this really awesome thing. The hot shop is so much more on demand. Okay, you have your job, you have your job, you have your job, and don't fuck up.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you fuck up, this whole thing is ruined.
Yeah, it's so true.
And then there's the one guy who's just he's like the conductor, and he's just I'm making this shit work.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've always considered Dale Chihuly to be. Everybody bitches at him about not, he hasn't blown glass since '76. I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you think about his ass. He's a genius.
He's a designer at this point, and that's amazing that he can do that.
Yeah.
It's that he has made a success enough to be able to walk away from it and just design the things and not have to have the hands-on, because like you were saying in one of your interviews a while back, you go try and make one of those goddamn sculptures by yourself.
Yeah.
Seriously? No. You're going to be there for a year and a half. You're going to make one sculpture, and it's just not, his demand is so much greater than that. It's not feasible for him as a business alone, or as an artist to do it all himself.
Well, I know the first chandelier I ever hung up that I made myself, that I was commissioned to make, took me 16 hours to hang the fucking thing. Not even making it. It took me. I had like 90 hours into the manufacturing of it, and then 16 just to hang it.
Right, and 16 really grueling hours where you're just like, don't break anything, don't break anything.
Oh yeah, it was tedious as shit. It was fun, but it was like, man, it took me 3 nights to go in this lady's house and hang them up after she went to bed. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, every time I see somebody put a chandelier up, like when Buck did that one chandelier, I was just like, oh my God, yes. Mm-hmm. I've never had enough materials at hand to do something that large. Like if I did a chandelier, it'd be like a chandelier for your dollhouse. And it'd be awesome. But it would be that big. And if anybody wants a chandelier for your dollhouse, like, I'm your man, I'll do
it. That's amazing.
I just never had that much glass at hand. That would be so cool.
Only reason I did, dude, because I got a nice fat deposit on my commission. So I was like, because I could, buy all the supplies.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, somebody gives you enough to buy all the materials and you have the time to do it. Like, awesome. It sounds amazing. The biggest things I've done is Bondu came through and taught a class over at that gallery, and I worked for him for a short period of time, so I'd consider him a personal friend of mine, and he showed me how to make the marble machines and some of the more kinetic stuff. And the biggest thing I made was about a 24 by 24 cube that was a marble machine that ended up being an amusement park. So there's like balloons, and there was like a Ferris wheel and a little carousel and a whole bunch of little slides and stuff, and the marbles just powered everything.
That's amazing.
And it had like a little arm on the one side, so the arm would let go of the marbles at the top, and then you'd slowly rotate the arm back down to the bottom, and the whole thing would come back around all the way around, and the marble or 2 marbles or 3 marbles would land in the little chute that I made, and then you'd rotate the arm back up and start the whole thing again.
That's cool as hell.
Yeah, that was like the biggest thing I made, and I forget what the gallery sold it for, like $1,000 or something like that, but it was as far as like multiple unit constructions on a larger kind of scale thing, that was about the biggest one I've made. I've done a bunch of littler ones that are like little pyramids and stuff like that are really fun, and I gotta like commend him, man. His work is amazing. I get to help him on a few of his kinetics, and it's again, it's one of those really humbling experiences to watch what he's doing with glass. So, I mean, he's a great guy, and his mindset for glass is absolutely awesome.
Yeah, man, it was an honor to have him on the show too, to talk to him, pick his brain, about all that kind of stuff. Because I've always been so intrigued by his work. Just kinetic sculptures in general and marble tracks and stuff. Even as a kid, I always loved all that shit. But then to see him doing it in glass, it's mind blowing.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, and that's I had one of those little marble runs when I was a kid too. It was plastic as modular, and you put all the pieces together, and you throw marbles at it like some sort of crazy monkey, and they all go flying in different directions, and it's just amazing. And you don't think about it when you're a kid, but later you're like, oh my God, the engineering.
Yeah.
Like, I want to make something like that. And then when you get down to it and you're doing like what Bondu is doing, where you have like moving cams and shifters and elevators and stuff, it's awesome, and he really taps into that mad scientist spirit that he's going for. And gotta love him for it.
Yeah. Yeah,
and for what he does for this community in general. Like, just I can't count the amount of people that have been like, all right, you know what you want to learn? Here, read this, and handed his book to him.
Oh, dude, every glass blower should have that collection. Everybody that has ever touched any glass should have those 3 books. And I am right now will admit that I don't have them. I've read them. I've read them, but the third one I haven't read yet. But the first 2 I've read cover to cover.
I've got them because I was thinking about buying them, and that's when I kind of started working for him, and then he ended up giving them to me over the period of buying them and signing each one and putting like a little note. He actually dropped a bunch of them off on like Christmas Day or something when he was on his way to see some family or something. It was really weird because he lives like right over the mountain from here.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's right. He does. So, yeah. Well, I'll put a link on for those listening. I'll put a link on Amazon because you can get his books through Amazon, and I'm gonna take advantage. I'm gonna buy them.
Yeah, I would. It's an amazing resource to have, and it's really nice to shut apprentices up when they try to say dumb things, and you're like, all right, here's a book. Like, stop that. Like, this says that physically can't happen, so don't do that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Hell yeah,
But that's
dude.
always, yeah, and it's a cool resource to have him just like right over the mountain. And he made me realize how much the glass industry here in Arizona was more of a budding thing than I thought it was growing up. I always thought like I was one of the only glass blowers in Arizona and all this other stuff. And he kind of pushed me into doing a few things. And then right before I started working for him, I went down to Tucson because I heard of a charity event, and it was the Arizona Project, which is kind of like the Michigan Project. And I'm standing next to him at that show and just kind of bullshitting with him. And he's just kind of looking at me like I'm super familiar. And I'm just like kind of looking at him like he's super familiar. And it ended up he used to live right down the street from me. And it was just like this weird moment. He's just like, wait a second, I know your parents. I was just like, wow, this is a tiny little world. Holy crap.
Yeah, that's amazing.
You know? But that was my first experience down there at the Arizona Project, seeing any kind of collaboration before that. And, you know, I mean, I'd been doing it probably 6 or 7 years at the time. Before that, I'd never seen anybody work with anybody else. I'd only seen some stuff in the magazines, and most of it was solo work. And it didn't even occur to me that that was a possibility, or that events like what the Arizona Project, the Michigan Project were like even a possibility of being a thing, you know?
Yeah, and in Tucson, bro, it's amazing the amount of artists that have come out of that fucking area, or just, you know, that part of the country, but really out of Tucson. I mean, it's a huge art community there, and the glass artists, just the talent in that area is amazing.
It's absolutely awesome, and I was really, really fortunate to have a couple artists down there just welcome me with open arms and introduce me to like a whole bunch of people down there. And it's like you said, it's like a little kind of like miniature Mecca in Arizona. And you would never think of Arizona as being a pipe friendly state.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's come around quite a lot, you know, and to see the work that like people are producing now compared to what it was at that point, even, it's really, really awesome. 'Cause I mean, like, for example, Calvin Mickle was there, and he hadn't even gone by Calm yet, and wasn't making birds. He was making these watery, drippy kind of pieces. And so that was like the beginnings of him being there, and that he kind of came out of that. Brian Jacobson is down there. And for people that ask, you know, how long does it take to get really, really good? In 2 years, I saw Brian Jacobson go from like starting out to making the most awesome Filicellos I've ever seen. So like 2 years of concerted like effort, doing like really well. And you can do really, really well at this medium. You just have to do all your basics first and go from there.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah, dude.
But it was really cool to see a lot of artists down there that I now see their work, and they're just blowing up and they're doing amazing. And it's just like, it was like really awesome to see their beginnings.
Yeah, and a lot of those guys started off making beads and doing the bead shows, you know, for years and years and years. I mean, Salt, you name them, they were all there.
Yeah, Rashawn down there doing the Best Beads show.
Yeah, I love Rashawn.
He's a great guy.
He's so fucking funny. Yeah. I need to bring him back on the show again. He's been on twice already. I'm jonesing to have Rashawn back on the show again. But I'm gonna wait till.
I'm
gonna bring him back on for a 200 because he was on for 1 and for 100. So I'm gonna bring him on for a 200. Figure like every 100th show I'll bring him on as a. So we'll get to 1,000 shows, and him and I'll be in our 60s by then, and we'll just be still grouchy old men on the front porch telling kids to make pipes, make spoons, don't make ribs.
Yeah, right. Us glass blowers will be beating down your doors, making you do 2 episodes a day by then. You'll get to 1,000 before you. Yeah, right.
Well, the pace I've been doing that this last 2 months, I've put out I think 4 episodes that are new this last 2 months, so I'm getting back on track. I got a bunch of guys on check now for schedules, so looking forward to getting this show back on the road again, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's a good resource for a lot of people. I know that, so it's nice to have this kind of thing happening. It's nice to see the human side of a lot of the people that you see their work, you know, because I don't think a lot of people in this industry get to meet each other, and so it's very easy to just not see the humanity in other people because you never get to see the other people.
Yeah, I completely agree. And for me personally, it was one of the reasons I wanted to start the show. I mean, I have many of them, but one of the reasons is because I never get it. I've been down here in Florida for for 41 years almost now, and I still have yet to been to a fucking trade show. I was supposed to be at Glass Roots this last week, and Irma fucked that all up for me financially wise. But
right,
so doing the show has given me a chance to meet all these artists I've been looking up to for all these years, and new guys also, or like yourself. Like I've just recently came across your work over here in the last 6 months, and it's really cool to have this outlet for myself personally, in a selfish sense, to get out there and meet people without having to leave my house, in a sense, but also to introduce you to the community who may not know who you are, and to give you all a platform to share whatever the fuck you want to share. Whether it's a class, it's art you're working on, a trade show, what booth you're going to be at. I mean, whatever the fuck it is, it's awesome that this technology has given me this ability to create this show, to have this platform for whoever wants to come on here. And I say whoever, dude. If you've been blowing glass for a week and you want to come on here and talk about your week of blowing glass, come on the show. I would love to have you on.
That would be a good show. That would be a good show.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like for sure. To be able to capture somebody's first week in glass to where they have that like childlike passion, where their obsession is just budding, that'd be a great show.
Yeah.
Because they'd be freaking out and they'd be saying such ridiculous things, and it'd be so awesome. And everybody who listened to it would just smile and laugh.
Yeah. I remember those days.
They would just be like, "This is the cutest thing ever! Oh my god, it's like a new puppy." Like that would be the response. Yeah. Everybody who's actually like, they'd just be like, "Oh, he burnt his little finger."
Yeah, exactly. Now get to work, motherfucker.
Yeah, I burn myself in live videos all the time, and I'm always just like, "Ow!" And then I pick stuff up and go back to work, and they're like, "You're a trooper," and I'm like, "No, I can't feel it anymore." It's nothing to do with me being a trooper.
Oh man,
I just don't.
Yeah, doing it live on video is way better than doing it live in front of people, dude. And one of our guys working one day, like I've dozed off a couple times on stage myself, like mid making something, and just from being that whole meditative process, you get all relaxed and you're slow breathing and shit. And fucking Jimmy Dill is one of our he's a dude's phenomenal sculptor, but he dozed off mid whatever he was working on and stuck his hand right in the flame in front of a whole bunch of people watching him working. It woke him right the fuck up, but he was like, he finished whatever he was making, and he was done for the day, obviously.
Yeah.
But
yeah, torch burns are ruthless.
Oh, dude, I just kissed the outside of my nail bed on my middle finger 2 weeks ago. I mean, I just kissed it with a flame. It was immediately like and it hurts so bad that you don't realize that it hurts until you get your hand out of the flame, and it's like, what the fuck did I just do? And I mean, I've gone full bore in my flame before, but this was just like the littlest little kiss, and man, it was sucked. Yeah, speaking of that, so Halloween is coming up here in 2 weeks from this when we are talking. And last year I did the Best of the Worst Injuries Volume 1, so I got Volume 2 I'm in the middle of doing right now. And it's funny and not funny going, because I always laugh when I talk to all about your injuries and shit. And there's definitely gonna be some good ones this year. Last year's was like more of like some of the brutal ones, but this year's are more of the kind of funny. I don't know. They're still pretty brutal, no matter what.
Hey, you're burning yourself. Like it's not gonna be nice, or cutting yourself. Like either way, it's no bueno.
Yeah.
But yeah. It and anytime you hurt yourself, it's like when you fall as a kid, and your parents laugh at you. It's a good thing, because then you laugh at yourself and you get up and you move on. If you fall as a kid, your parents go, "Oh, you hurt yourself! Oh my god!" You just get upset. Like, what good does that do?
Yeah, exactly.
Laugh it off, walk it off.
Yeah.
As long as you're not like hurt, like just fucking, you'll be all right.
Yeah, man. Okay. People always, all the time at work, they're like, "I would love to do that." And the first thing I say to them was like, "If you don't mind burning and cutting yourself every day, you'd love it."
Yeah.
They're always like, "Oh yeah."
And I've gotten to the point where like I burn myself all the damn time, and it does not bother me at all. And I kind of expect it a little bit because I'm a rather disorganized person. So I tend to pick up hot rods and tools quite often.
Yeah, mine's mostly hot tools, but I understand.
Yeah. But it happens. You'd think after 20 years I would have figured that out, but
Dude, it fucking hurts every time too. I don't give a shit how small or big it is. I mean, I blow it off and keep going, but it still sucks. In the back of my mind, I'm like, fuck, this thing sucks.
I think my brain just blocked it out a long time ago, because like, I don't know, like if I get bad, like if I pick something up and I hear, like that's the big one. If I hear my skin sizzle, then for some reason I'm like, oh, that freaking hurts. But if I don't, I don't know.
Just keep moving on.
I'll touch stuff, and I'll like look at it, and my thumb will be brown, and I'll just like rub it roughly on my pants.
I do the same thing.
My thumb's not brown.
The worst was
I just go back to work, and
I'll lick it sometimes, and I'm like, why did I just do that? It tastes so gross. What the fuck am I doing?
I do that all the time, and now I've gotten to the point where I'm like, burnt flesh. It's weird and wrong.
It's disgusting.
It is, dude. It's so horrible. Just the things we do in life.
I know. I wonder how many people are listening to this and laughing because I do the same shit. You know, it's like, fuck. We all know. We all know what burnt skin tastes like.
Yeah, human nature is one of those things. When you do something new, what are you going to do? Same thing you did when you were a kid. Yeah. You're going to smell it, and then you're going to lick it.
Yep. And it tastes
it's not going to be good either.
It smells and tastes exactly the same.
Exactly.
It's
like,
gross.
what is this new? Oh, God, no, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the best. Well, I think it's a good point for us to take a quick break and thank our sponsors here, and then we'll come back and it'll be time to find out what your worst injury in the studio was.
Okay.
All right. Be right back. This segment of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by Zen Dude Fitness. Lose 10 pounds this month by joining the Zen Dude Fitness 4-week jump rope fat loss challenge. Brandon and Dan will take you on a guided journey towards becoming the best you. Get fit, have fun, and find new ways to eat healthy while still enjoying the sweeter side of life. Just takes 20 to 30 minutes a day and no gym required. For more info and to sign up for the free 4-week challenge, go to wiseguymedia.com/ZenDudeFitness. That's wiseguymedia.com/ZenDudeFitness. All right, we're back. So it's time for Crashing the Kiln round. We got 7 questions here, and you can give me a 30 to 60-second answer on them or expound upon them as we always do. And the first question I always like to ask is if there's any living glass artists that you haven't worked with yet, and who is it and why you'd want to work with them?
Oh, man, I've been trying to think about this for a while now. That's a really hard one. I'd probably say Buck. And it's between like him and Banjo because of the scale of what they do in fabrication and just their multifacetedness more than anything. And I just really, really enjoy Buck's style. I have since he started doing like the bonefish kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that I would learn one hell of a lot working with him. At the same point, I don't think that he would learn much from working with me, so I don't know.
You'd be surprised,
don't know how
man.
fair that would be, but at the same time, like that would be my number one probably.
It's an interesting choice based on scale because you work small and they work large, so I think it's interesting.
Yeah, and that's why it's between him and Banjo, is because Banjo does like a large scale thing with a shitload of small components.
Yeah.
Which is kind of like what I'm all about and really like to do and want to do more of. But at the same time, Buck does like the large skulls and more like the chandelier we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
and the big fish and things like that. And I don't know. I think I have a lot to learn in that area. I think it would be really beneficial for me to work with either one of them. But yeah, Buck for sure.
Cool.
Like as far as at this point.
Hell yeah. What are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Well, I do a lot of fuming, so black, white, cobalt, for sure, because those soak up those fumes so well and give me all the wonderful colors. The other two, that's really hard. Amber purple, I would say, and I'd say like the original slime because of how gaudy it is. And I know a lot of people don't like it for that because it's just so bright and poppy, but that is exactly what I like about it.
I missed it, dude. The original slime.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
But those would be about it. Other than the Draconis, which, just that's a given.
Yeah. So what's your worst injury in the studio?
Well, see, that'd be between two. So the first one would be when I was younger. I was making well, I was gathering up a big gather to make a marble and talking to a friend of mine at the same time, and ended up getting the gather way, way, way too hot on too small of a punty. And then he said something, and I looked at it and went, "Oh shit," and pulled it towards me, and it fell right off the punty and landed right in my crotch on the right side. Burnt a hole through my shorts, or through my pants and through my shorts, and gave me a pretty big scar and a pretty big burn in one of the worst places you could possibly want to have a burn. And that luckily that was all temporary because it glazed off. But man, dude, did that hurt like crazy. And that was the worst one I did when I was a kid. And after that, I didn't really burn myself very bad for a very long time. And then a few years ago, I'd say like maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was working on the torch, again talking to a friend of mine, and I turned and ran my arm through the torch flame.
Oh my
like,
God!
All the way from about wrist to elbow, just real fast. And that was an interesting one because my arm actually lit on fire. Like all the hair on the back of my arm just lit on fire, and I must have had like coconut oil on my arm or something on my arm. I have no idea, but it was not pleasant.
Fuck.
But those were my two worst. Yeah, and luckily no permanent craziness. I've got more scars from my automotive stuff than I did anything.
Dude, I've got oil on my knuckle I have had since I was 12 years old, still to this day, from when I cut myself changing the brakes. My dad was like, "You're going to learn how to change the brakes before you're 16. I'm like, "Okay, cool." Yeah, I cut my knuckle wide open, and I've got grease in it still. It's weird.
Yep, I believe it.
Yeah.
I've got all sorts of weird little freaking issues from smashing myself or jamming things under my skin and stuff like that. Cars are not friendly.
No, they're hot and greasy and smelly.
Yeah, but they're a lot of fun. So
yeah,
you know,
this is
it has
true.
its catchbacks.
So yeah, when you burnt your arm, were you out of work for a while from that?
Ironically, I wrapped it up. My mom and I grow a lot of aloe vera sitting right here next to me. Mm-hmm. And I took a really big leaf of that aloe vera, ripped it open, stuck it on my arm, and duct taped it, and kept working for the rest of the day.
God. Amazing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just, like I said, I got used to burning myself when I was a kid, and so, like, I was just like, all right, this is what I'm going to do, and I got to keep working. I forget what I had. I had, like, an order I had to do at the time, too, so I was like,
yeah,
fuck it, I'm just going to do it. And as soon as I put the aloe vera on and wrapped it, I was just like, well, I can't feel it anyway. Fuck it.
Yeah, and that's always the times that you got to keep working is when you can't feel it.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, if I wait 20 minutes and this thing, like, actually hits my brain, I'm screwed. I just got to keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing. So when you're in the shop, do you watch TV, listen to the radio, or do you do both?
I mostly listen to music. I will listen to podcasts occasionally, and I have like watched TV on my phone before, but it's just highly distracting to me. And go to like hardcore ADD or something. I'm like, ooh, look, shiny. You know, I can't really watch anything. I have a bad enough time with the live videos, with looking at the screen to see what people are saying when I'm working.
You know what I've done with that, dude, is I've turned my camera around so I can't see it. Because I used to do the same shit. I would just turn my camera over, so you get the better side of the camera anyways, but also keeps you from seeing what's going on, because don't get me wrong, it's nice to have the live stream so you can communicate. However,
and that's the other one I kind of enjoy, that, like, I don't know, it gives me that same sense it did when I was a kid at the Renaissance Festival. Mm-hmm. So that whole communication back and forth is kind of what I crave more than anything when I do a live video. Even one person's in there, I'm like, all right, who's in here? Talk to me. Yeah. You know?
That's how I was with the show, dude. It was like once I had my first download, I was like, yay, I've got an audience and I'm not talking to myself anymore.
Right. And so, yeah, I think that would drive me insane. I'd end up flipping the camera back around just to see what people are saying.
Too funny.
But it is a good idea. I keep thinking about, like, to get the better side of the camera, setting my laptop on here and streaming on my laptop so I could see everything more clear. But it seems like I'm going to be more distracted. Yeah. So.
Hell yeah.
But mostly just music.
Cool. Hell yeah. Anything specific, music-wise?
Anything kind of dancey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything with a good rhythm. I listened to, like, nothing but 90s rock for, oh God, I want to say like 10 years. And when I got together with my wife, she just kind of like showed me all her music. And so I've been listening to a lot of like really girly pop music and liking the hell out of it.
Oh, dude, I love that
I'm
shit.
not ashamed of that at all.
Oh, fuck no, dude. I listen to boy bands. I don't give a fuck.
It was weird. It was stuff that I'd never thought of myself as enjoying anything like that for whatever stuck up reason, probably. But she's introduced me to more music that I've fallen in love with than like my entire life.
Hell yeah. Well, that kind of stuff's great for the shop. You know, it's like it's so much fun.
It really is. It keeps you upbeat and happy and doing your thing. And it's not, I mean, like I love some of my more like serious music and stuff like that, but it's just not shop music.
Yeah. I used to do like I had like when the iPad or the iPod I should say came out, I had like the Nano or some shit. It had like 30 songs on it. But I was like Rage Against the Machine, Limp Bizkit, Linkin Park. It was like those 3 back-to-backs albums. And every morning I'd get up with my coffee and a doobie and I got there and cranked that up in the mornings. And it was like, after a while, after like a couple years, I was like, all right, I'm so over this shit. I need something different, you know?
Yeah.
It's
and
nice.
That's exactly what I was doing. It was the same shit. Same exact bands too, for the most part. And like, I don't know. It was, I just got stuck in that same rut and never climbed out of it. And here in where I live, there's no cultural presence for the younger generation at all. So it's not like I can turn on a radio and hear something that might be interesting.
Right.
I can turn on a radio and hear like top 40 or oldies or, like that's about it, you know?
Yeah.
Classic rock. Woo. I had enough of that.
Yeah. I hear you.
Too much of the automotive business, and it's just like, oh my God, not another hair band, please. No.
Yeah, no more Metallica.
Yeah, it's like, oh, please. Like I enjoyed it for a long time. I don't anymore.
Hell yeah. So you have any?
But as long as it's upbeat and regular rhythm, I'm pretty down with it. I'm pretty open.
Nice. You have any glass blowing themed tattoos?
I do not. I was actually trying to get one before we got on the podcast.
Oh shit! I should have put you off a couple more days.
She's been dodging me. Nah. I have an armband that I started working on. That's all my. I do the fume trap that looks like space.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a whole bunch of my favorite patterns over the last couple of years that I've taken pictures of, and I'm slowly incorporating each one of the planets on my armband in like with those fuming patterns. And then what I was going to do is the armband is like a whole bunch of like crystals, so it's kind of steampunky a little bit.
Okay.
And I'm going to have a Smith mini torch on my hand, like where the flame goes all the way down my index finger, and the end of the torch ends like right at my knuckle.
Huh. Interesting.
And then I want the hoses of the torch to come back and like bury in my wrist, kind of thing, look like they disappear.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll pop out near the armband and attach to one of the big crystals on the armband.
Huh, interesting.
So it'll just be like the armband, which is like kind of like all the different, I'm going to have it be like all the different things that represent my art over the years will be powering the little mini torch.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought it'd be kind of fun and different. And I really love the little mini torches. So
yeah,
I figured, why the hell not? And then I'll get a Major Meyer on me eventually. I just got to figure out how to incorporate that.
Yeah, that'd be a tricky torch to have tattooed.
Yeah.
Like I've got a Carlisle, so I have my Carlisle made into like a little UFO or space rocket on my arm, because I have a full space scene going on too. So I had to incorporate that in there somehow or other, and it worked out pretty good.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, man. So speaking of Smith torches, what are your five favorite tools?
That would be one of them for sure. Let's see here. Jeweler's pliers. I hate tweezers. I despise them. And so I just like those really, like, and the reason I like jeweler's pliers is because I can get a lot of torque behind them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I feel like those tweezers like torque out after a certain point, and that drives me insane. Scissors. And let's see here, just a bead mandrel coated in wax. I use that for flaring like everything.
Oh, interesting.
I have a lot of graphite tools as well, but I almost always, as long as the hole is big enough, I almost always stick my 1/8 mandrel in there that's coated in beeswax and just flare the fucker out with that. It almost always ends up with a better result than the graphite tools for me, just as a personal preference. And I've kind of figured out how to hold my hand at a certain angle and just make a 10 millimeter joint with the mandrel without a tool.
Fuck yeah.
So that's been really nice. Yeah, just whoop, and there you go. And then I check it with a tool, and it's perfect. And I'm like, God damn, what the hell? Blows my mind every time. And then I have a marber that doubles. It's a marble mold on a handle, so I use that as a paddle and a marble mold. So that would be my 5.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. Well, it's been fun.
The mandrel's the big thing.
Well, that's a great idea. I had never thought about that before. Like I've used other things like that before, but I never thought about a mandrel. It makes total sense though.
Oh yeah, I just had it sitting around. It's like local shit. I have no idea how many years ago, and I was just like, I need to flare something out. And I looked over and saw it sitting there, and I was just like, beeswax. And it worked so well. I was just like, holy shit, I'm going to use this from now on. Yeah, they're welding wires, so they don't heat up very fast.
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah.
It works really, really, really well. I recommend it to anybody if you need a cheap flaring tool and you can't afford a graphite reamer. Just go buy some welding wire and cut it nice and even. Get some beeswax. And just deal with it in the meantime.
Yeah, I think beeswax is a necessity in a shop anymore for tools.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, fuck yeah.
You know, as far as like other stuff, the sculpting tools, I love like the butter knife and spoon and a fork. And I've got some of those little like wax sculpting tools that you buy, and those things are fucking awesome.
You know, it reminds me of something new I've been introduced to for impressions and stuff in glass is it's like Michael's or any of the craft stores out there. They sell cookie cutter kits you can get, and it's just like a brass or copper. I think it's brass. It's like a thin sheet roll of brass, and you unroll it, and then you can bend it and shape it into whatever shape you want to make for cookie cutters. And some of our guys use that for doing like eyebrows or making consistent shapes that are symmetrical by taking that little piece of that metal and bending it into a shape, and grabbing it with a pair of hemostats and just pressing it into the glass for different things. That was a cool idea. Yeah, something I'd never seen before until just recently. Or any kind of like metal, like brass tubes. Like you can go to these hobby marts in different places that sell like a bag of miscellaneous size little tubes of brass, and you can use them for all kind of impressions, eyeballs, circles, little prints, all kind of stuff.
Yeah, I've seen people do that with brass sheeting, and then they go find something that has a texture, and they hammer it over whatever it is that has a texture, and then clean it off, and then you roll your glass across it, and it gives you the texture. And so, for example, I saw a guy, this brass was like super, super thin, and he went and wrapped it around a tree and took a rubber mallet. It just sat there and like just roughly whacked it onto the tree bark, and then came through, laid it on the table, and took the hot shop in the studio. He took some like brown in the hot shop and rolled it across it and made it look like freaking tree bark.
What a cool idea! And I've actually seen
it was awesome.
Seen people that have stuffed a mold with tree bark and blown into the mold with their glass to get that impression. For picking up bark
this guy
texture.
was just like, fuck that, I'm just going to spend $5 and do it. You know what I mean?
Smart.
Like, he was that old school kind of guy.
Yeah.
And the reason he showed me is because my dad's gas station has these panels on the outside that are copper. And it's like the only gas station they ever did that to, blah, blah, blah. But they're like stippled. So they have all these like weird little round impressions on it. Huh. And he was trying to get my dad to let him take that piece of brass and like hammer it over the stipple so he could get the impression. And my dad was like, hell no. It's like, that's copper. You're trying to use brass. You're going to fuck up my panel.
Yeah, no shit.
But it was just funny.
Yeah. Interesting. Leather tools, too, are really good for doing impressions and stuff like that.
I love leather tools. They just have to be embossed.
Yeah.
Like thick enough, like high enough. You need like those heavy release ones. Like I have one sitting right next to me that looks like a kind of like a waffle.
Okay.
And it's just not deep enough. Like I need to get a chop saw and cut all these grooves deeper for it to do its job. And then I have another one that looks like a rocket ship, and that one is fucking awesome, but I always forget to use it.
We'll use it tonight, damn it, or whenever you work next.
Yeah, no, I still need to make a glastronaut with like a little shield or like something with a rocket ship on it, and then fume it so you can see the rocket ship.
Yeah, that'd be cool, dude. Like it's reflecting in his glass in the shield of his helmet.
Yeah, that'd be super sweet.
Yeah, that'd be fucking rad. Well, hell yeah, dude. I can sit here and flap at you all night long, man, but I know your time's valuable over there. It's been 2 hours, so I'm ready for bed myself. But that being said, man, I appreciate having you on, and again, thanks for the patience, and it's been a crazy couple months, and coming on the show tonight and sharing your journey, man. You're the first person we've had on that's started off at such a young age and is still passionate, as passionate as you are about it. It's fucking cool, man. So
I'll never put this down. Yeah. I'll never get rid of glass, that's for sure. I will go blind with cataracts one day, and I'll burn my hands to stumps. And I'll be like, give me some more glass. And they'll be like, no, Austin, no. Like, no. Like, I don't, yeah. I can't put this shit down if I tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, man, it becomes a part of us.
Thank you very much for having me on. It was an honor.
Yeah. Hell yeah, dude. Well, before I let you go, man, if you want to give us a parting piece of advice and then where we can find you out there in the world of cyberspace.
Never lose that moment that you first fell in love with glass. Never, ever lose that. Because that moment right there will be what drives you every day through all of the trials and tribulations, all of the frustrations, and all of the trials of your patience. That little moment when you first fall in love with it.
Hell yeah. So true. So true. That's awesome. And yeah, dude, so where can we find you out there on Instagrams and everything else?
Hensley Art Glass is my Instagram handle, and I have a Hensley Art Glass page on Facebook as well, but I'm more active on my personal page, which would just be Austin Hensley. If I'm not in your local head shop, you could always tell them about me, and then I'll be there, and you could see me there.
Hell yeah.
But other than that, I always do auctions on the regular. I was doing daily auctions there for a while. It's kind of waned off a little bit, but there's always options to get my work if you follow me directly. And yeah, I'm getting more active in the industry, doing champs shows and age, and I'm going to try and do Glass Vegas coming up. I was trying to make it to Glass Roots, but that didn't happen. But just see me out and about, and yeah.
Beautiful. Hell yeah, dude. Well, again, hang on for after the show. We'll say our goodbyes off the air here. And again, it's been an honor having you on, man. I definitely appreciate the sharing the story, and it's gonna be a long journey for you, dude. It's fucking pretty cool. I'm actually quite envious that you started as early as you did. So
I hear that a lot from other glass workers, but I don't know. It's just life is what it is.
Yeah.
You know? We all walk our own journeys.
Yeah, this is so true.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, anytime. And I hope you guys enjoyed our conversation here with Austin and having a lot of fun here talking about glass and growing up with glass and being around it and all kind of fun stuff. And if you guys need to get a hold of him, check him out on his Instagrams and his fun little stuff and his auctions he's doing. And until next time, we will see you on episode, this is 176, so yeah. Next is 177. Jesus. Can't believe it. So thanks again for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time on the Wise Guy Radio Show. Y'all take it easy. Peace. This episode of the Wise Guy Radio Show is brought to you by The Flow magazine. Since its inception, the focus of The Flow has been to provide a bond among members of the lampworking community. In every issue, you can enjoy great content with the hottest artists and cutting-edge techniques using the latest industry products. These features, along with the continuation of our Women in Glass edition, Glasscraft Emerging Artist Awards, inspiring gallery showcases, dynamic general interest articles, as well as health and safety information, make The Flow the leading international lampworking journal. For more information or to subscribe to The Flow, go to theflowmagazine.com. That's theflowmagazine.com.